Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Aurora. This class is called Path of Light. And this is a wonderful original curriculum that I've developed that is even more advanced and even more brain liquefyingly difficult and challenging than the things that I usually teach people on Wednesday afternoons. So welcome and thank you to the fearless participants who are here in order to be able to learn all about what I have to share. You know what I'm just going to do? I'm just going to organize my screen a little bit better so that way I can see my notes better. There we go. Putting someone into the meeting and pulling up my notes. Because this is always a mind stretch for me as well. So I'm having difficulty with my screen. There we go. So that way I don't look like I'm always looking off camera, and I can also read what I need to read. So thank you for allowing me that. And I will be my usual, very serious, but very lighthearted and not so serious self. Okay. So I hope that people who are in this class are able to access the whiteboards because they are really well drawn. And they also really help to give you an added dimension beyond my verbal description of the things that I'm trying to teach you about here. And it's pretty complex stuff. And so, good. Aurelia says she loves the mind stretch. Do your yoga. Stretch it on out, everyone. Get yourself big. Expand, expand, expand. I really mean it. Yeah, you need to do this type of stuff. And also, I spend a lot of time fighting the dark side. I call it scrubbing the cosmic toilet bowl, dealing with garbage and trashola and things that are part of the non-pristine system. And I've spoken about all those things extensively in our Wednesday class. So you guys know I am not complicit with those things. I fight against them with everything I got. We got some car horns outside. And I try to do whatever I can in order to be able to create a pristine system. What I'm encouraging us to do for this 4-week class. So we already did last week, which was intro and some of the basic diagrams. And then there will be this week, and then there will be 2 more weeks. Just focus on light. And I'm really encouraging you throughout the week, take refuge in thinking about just pure light. If you are distressed or disheveled by the non-pristine aspects of the system that you're within and the trashola and the crapola garbage, think about light. Literally, it is all around you in your environment. And I really feel that this is a profound nourishment. And when you place your tendril of attention on light itself, you get nourished and brought into a higher level of being. So, of course, we're not into escapism, but this is information that is hugely empowering. So today, what I'm going to be teaching you about is basically the stretching of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. What I'm going to be teaching you about is on a macroscopic level, the level of stars and black holes. Please know that in subsequent teachings, I'll get you to the level of the fabric of space-time at the molecular level. And I feel like that might be where you start to sense how this can be directly applicable to your life or an empowerment teaching that is beyond something that is merely like an abstract, whatever, fun hobby for your mind. This is actually applicable. When you embody these truths, you become more capable in what you can do in reality. So I am not merely asking you to escape from a bad reality or to deny the things that are not correct in the world. I am actually asking you to do this heavy lifting so that you can comprehend reality on a higher dimensional level and then actually be able to use those comprehension skills to apply to greater levels of empowerment, basically how molecular building blocks are put together and how they can be put apart and how you can comprehend your own participation in the transformation of the fabric of space-time. Okay, so it's worth it. Stick with the weightlifting program that I'm teaching you because you will actually see results. Okay, so I also always preface what I'm saying. To be clear, I am not a scientist. I will use some of the words that are from the scientific community, and I'm trying to find kind of a bridge and a common ground. But we're moving out of rationalism and materialism and moving into what is higher dimensional math and higher dimensional truth. And none of these things are things that I have learned from the experience of being here in this world with you. So I have not learned them from books or from other people's sharings. And I have learned this from directly placing my tendril of attention onto the world of pure light in order to then have these insights. And then my job is like a translator to be able to translate those things from their abstract truth into words and mostly diagrams and other conceptual things that I can help you to make this digestible to you. So it's exactly like when you're a chef and you go to the store and you get some other whatever form of ingredient. It would be inedible. Like imagine a coconut where you're just like this thing, like you can't just chomp into it. It must be opened. It must be prepared. Someone must do something to it so that way you can eat the edible parts of it. That is what I'm trying to do, make these concepts edible to you. But today I'm going to do a little bit of crossover about what is the fabric of space-time. And this is going to be all about what is mass and what is light and what are the implications of whether something has mass or doesn't have mass, and whether it's experiencing gravity or whether it is experiencing time, and how that relates to the stretching of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. So we're going way into levels of pure abstraction here. So, as I like to say, strap yourselves in, get ready to begin. And some of the things that I will say are in conflict with what would be taught as like the traditional view from the physics classroom, in a level of institution of higher learning in your world right now. Please don't be concerned about that. And I don't purport to be a physicist from any university that is here in your world. So thank you for giving me free license to express myself there. And I have the chat covered up. I really, really love and appreciate all of your questions, but I'll tell you, I'm really focused. Like I went through all of my notes this morning. In fact, I even sent out extra notes. And so I know we've got a fly flying around here too. So I have everything like Jenga towered in my brain right now, and I'm going to get through it, and then I'll be responsive to some of your questions, considerations, and wonderments. So for right now, I'm just going to make it easier on myself and stay focused on my notes. Yeah, so what I did was initially sent out, as I usually do, with the email invite to those who are here in this class during the live recording, my condensed version of my notes. Then as I was going over my full unexpurgated version, I was like, you guys need the unexpurgated version too. So then I sent that out too. Okay. So students of this class, read the notes, and also please watch the recorded whiteboards. And today I'm going to cover a lot of things that are in whiteboard number 2 and number 3, but we're also going to go over the states of matter. And the states of matter are relevant to all of these profound concepts that I'm sharing with you. And they're also kind of like your entry point into how you can have this relevant to your 5 senses reality. So the recognizing of the states of matter is more than merely an abstraction. I think that's where you can really engage on a biological level with your embodiment experience of reality and start to comprehend what matter is, what energy is, what light is. So I'm going to go over it in class today, but please know we will revisit the concept of the states of matter throughout this whole entire mini class that I teach to everyone. Okay. So the first thing that we have to talk about is light is a massless particle. And I'm air quoting a lot here, particle, because I've already described to you that light, as we describe it as a photon, like a slice of the cake, is actually not able to be sliced from the rest of the cake at all. This is a convenience. We do a lot of these conveniences, or whatever you'd call it. Like when I do these diagrams are not completely accurate to reality. These are all highly symbolic. So that's why I say heavy lifting. I'm requiring from you as student participants here to be able to add those extra layers of understanding to simple line diagrams when you really understand I am giving you symbolic structures of something that is actually much, much more than that. So when I talk about light not having any mass, What we're getting into is the sense of whether it is a physical object or a non-physical object, whether it is affected by gravity, whether it is tangible or intangible, whether you can weigh it on a scale. And a lot of these things now you can recognize have to do with truths about your biological container. All of this stuff that we're talking about is matter or energy or light or some form of vibration or frequency. And all of these things are actually all the same stuff, but we perceive it as if it is different substances or different definitions of substances according to our biological container. So your viewpoint from your biological container is totally valid, but just please know it is not the only viewpoint, and it is the anthropocentric viewpoint, the human-centered viewpoint. But of course, you are ascending, which is re-achieving light speed and reclaiming yourself as a being of pure light in the world of pure light. So do it from the viewpoint of an embodiment human. This is totally, totally fair. But what we're really talking about here is whether something, do we define it as matter, stuff, stuffity stuff? Do we define it as energy, which is something that is not matter, not tangible, and not something that we can hold in our hands, but something that we can still experience in our world? So for example, an example of energy would be, of course, optical light. There's plenty of optical light right now in your environment that you can perceive. Another form of energy would be infrared. That's heat, which is also a form of light. Another form of energy that is not tangible and doesn't weigh anything on scale is electricity. Electricity is flowing through this computer, of course. It's flowing through my light bulbs over here. It's a ordinary part of our world. But of course, it wasn't always. Electricity used to be only something that would be like a lightning bolt. That's really the only natural form of electricity in the environment. But now it is ubiquitous and something that we're very, very familiar with. But all of those things that I mentioned do not have mass, even though now I'm going to really confuse you, because electricity is the energy impulse that is transmitted through the probability field known as the electron cloud, the generalized area within which an electron, a shell, might occupy in the atom, a probability field, but the electron itself does have some mass. So the electron has a weight. If we had enough of them, we could put them on a scale and be like, this is how many grams an electron weighs. But it's also something that is matter at such a tiny level that we cannot properly observe it in order to be able to quantify it and weigh it. And it's very, very difficult. And so we just give a probability of where it is and what its likely nature is. And it is carrying energy through that probability field of that likely nature, but the energy that it carries has no mass. What? Oh, I'm being you now. What does it matter whether something has mass or not? Why do I care about this? And the answer is stuff that has mass is like heavy, and it creates these perturbations in the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. So we're talking about the stretchy nature, or yeah, that's the best way I can say it, the stretchy nature of what the fabric of reality is made out of. So we'll get into some conflicts, and then I'll resolve those conflicts for you. So first I will scramble your brains, then I will unscramble your brains, then put them all back into your ears, and you will be like, totally great. The sun and the stars that we see in the sky. First of all, these are balls of consciousness, and they are sentient and they are aware. Light itself is sentient and aware. And this is when I talk about this, very much like outside of the bounds of what physical five senses science in your world talks about, which is why I don't claim to be a scientist or be in alignment with that community at all. But consciousness or sentience is a huge aspect or an ingredient and an under-acknowledged player or variable in what is happening in the world. This is not just like some dead stupid thing that's like a bright object in the sky or a bunch of little tiny bright objects that are photons that kind of fly around and that fly into your eye. They are sentient. They are self-aware, or it. because pardon me, I'm also telling you that the photon is a convention. When we talk about one photon, it's really not that effective to be able to say this because the photon is part of a continuum of light. I'm always drawing a photon as if it's a little dot, and we envision it as if it's like, some spherical particle. Because we've been given this mental model of what the atom is or what the electron is. It's like, a round thing, like a baseball or a soccer ball or something like that. But I drew for you last week. The truth is that the photon is a story, and that if you were to look into that photon, it has the singularity at its center. And if you could go into the center of all the layers of that photon, you would be going into a story that is the totality story of all light everywhere that has ever been in existence, ever, ever, ever. So this is the mental stretch. That first of all, we're using photon as a convention. What you really have is a giant continuum of light. If I'm a star, I'm a star. Spoiler alert, you're all stars. But if I'm a star, what I'm doing is radiating light in all directions around me as a sphere, and I'm radiating these shells, like these rippling shells of light that come outward. So, of course, they're not just spokes as I draw them in my diagram, or like a child's drawing, like this is me, I'm drawing with my yellow Crayola, like, see, this is what the star is shaped like, like, and it's charming. These are conventions. But what you really have are rippling spheres of energy that come outward from stars, and that the sun itself is plasma. We're going to get into the states of matter. And plasma is a form of disorganized light that kind of straddles the biological five senses world definition of what is matter versus what is energy. The light of plasma is light. That was a terrible sentence. When you look at a star, you know that it is made of pure light. It is made of plasma. I have already begun by telling you that light has no mass. And so you're like, okay, well, this is a giant star. It's made of light. Light has no mass. Therefore, the star has no mass. But this is not truthful. That's the sound of your brain exploding. The truth is that stars have mass. Now we will draw pictures in order to help your brain drawing pictures. All right, I have to look at the right thing over here. I have to press a button. Take to whiteboards. So I am going to use this as a convention all the time. I'm going to be drawing the fabric of space-time, as if it is this two-dimensional and square or rectangular area like this. Is that line fat enough? I love it. Right? I'm drawing it as if it is like this, but I want you with your strong mental muscles to know that I am just doing this for the convenience of our diagrams, that the fabric of space-time is actually spherical. It actually is shaped more like this, which would be more like, not like a flat playing card, but instead like a globe, an orange, a baseball, something like that, right? But it's just much harder for me to make the drawings when I draw it like that. So the first thing is when you have a sun or a star, and that's always going to be signified by my simple little red line drawing like that, it has mass. And what that means is that the fabric of space-time is going to get warped by its presence. So that these are my drawings of it going down like this. And that's because it's heavy. Like you can imagine a bowling ball is sitting on a stretchy, rubbery type of surface and making it kind of stretch downward. File this away for when I teach you about the fabric of space-time at the molecular level and how mass of molecules stretches the fabric of space-time into comfy chairs. Okay, just file that away. So the conflict in your mind is that this thing, although it is made out of pure light, is doing this to the fabric of space-time, which is basically creating gravity. It is creating a warpage of the fabric of space-time that creates a drawing inward of other forms of both matter and energy. And usually when we look at the night sky and you have your traditional linear viewpoint, you've got all of these different stars that are all around, sprinkled throughout. Again, this is the linear model that I'm starting off with, but not the new model that I'm giving to you. And each one of them has a stretchiness to the fabric of reality. And each one of them has as it at its center that singularity. So let's make the giant purple dot. Let's make a giant purple dot, so you can really see it. Giant singularity, giant singularity. It's all the same singularity at the center of all of these stars. So what you really hear, let's start at the center of this diagram over here. What you really have is an endless pushing inward or warping inward. I already lost you. I could tell. So I have to start again. I'm telepathic and I'm very, very happy. I'm not disappointed at all. But it's more like you've got this fabric that's all around the stars like this. Better, better. And that what you really have in terms of the singularity is an infinite stretching inward, even though I've been drawing it in my diagrams as if it is a stretching downward. So maybe it's confusing if I draw these guys stretched down like this, and then I always put the infinity point over here so that you recognize it's stretched infinitely. But I have all these things as if they are stretching downward, right? Like they're all coming down through the bottom of some very stretchy bed sheet. But then what I do is I show you that's not the end of the story. What you really have are all of these vortexes that all stretch to the same place. And that's the fabric of space-time. And these are maybe not the best drawn vortexes, but you'll kind of get it. These are all vortexes. So let's do, here are all of the sun stars. This, 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 and they are all being stretched, infinite amount of stretchiness into singularity. And these are their stretchinesses. And if it's boring to watch me draw these lines, but I have to do it because I'm very obsessed. Drawing must be complete, even though it's not perfect. Okay, good. So this is one way to comprehend the stretchiness and where singularity is. And then let's make that big giant dot is actually right here. They all stretch infinitely to the same place. Now I'm going to confuse you. But that singularity is not the same as the definition of the singularity when you have a black hole. A black hole is what happens when a star evolves. Let's go back to my face. Yeah, I'm starting to call it something different than like if a star dies, it evolves. It evolves to the next level of its life experience. So stars are right now, as we perceive them, as emitters of light or emitters of photon. They also are emitters of timeline possibilities and probabilities. They are sending stuff out or creating new narratives. And there's a balance between what they send out and what they receive. And this is the balance of what supports life. When that balance is disrupted and there are no more new stories created and there's nothing new that is sent out, the inward pulling force becomes dominant and everything pulls inward. So I do not agree to science's characterization of the black hole as like the crushing monster that destroys life and sucks everything in. Like really, literally, if you watch any of these science documentaries that are about what black holes are and what they do, it's always narrated by in the most ridiculous voice. That's always like black holes go around sucking in stars and destroying everything. You know, it's very hyperbolic and just again, like it's worthy of ridicule. But no, that is not what black holes are doing. But it does speak a lot, I think, to science and materialistic non-comprehension of and fear of death or transformation of consciousness. Sorry, I have a lot of flies in my house right now. And the misinterpretation, kind of similar to how the Western mind first read hieroglyphics from ancient Egypt and totally misinterpreted the hieroglyphics that were about like the book of the dead, but it really means the book of coming forth into day. So you're coming out of a culture that is very like materialistic, doesn't know about the death, doesn't know about afterlife, very fearful, and then it's like dead black holes going around, destroying other things. Just put it all aside, put all those things aside. This is not helpful. No, black holes are the next stage of evolution of a star consciousness. So we're moving into a time when you will be accelerated to pure light speed, when there will be eternal life in a frictionless, blissful system with no loss of signal. But you're not at that level right now. You are right now in this world of mortality, where even an enormous level of consciousness being like a star has a limited lifespan. And that limited lifespan, it can be 16 billion years, which is a lot. Or it can be a couple of million years. Some stars are so long lived that if your universe or story of one narrative of one timeline that you're experiencing is roughly, 28 billion years, and it's like you've been living like roughly 13 or 14 billion years so far on this universe timeline. Some stars are so long lived, they have been born at the beginning of time and they have not died yet. So this is big stuff. Like some stars, literally, like if the beginning of time, according to this universe story, which is linear, which I know I'm confusing you because you're still hovering between linear and nonlinear, but a story has a beginning, and this story starts here, and a baby star was born. Like you can imagine, like a little baby star, like sucking its thumb and everything. You could be very cute about it, but it was born then, and it has continued to live and have this beautiful balance between the oscillations and what is sent out versus what is sent in, even up to this moment now. And it might even be able to continue living all the way up until what is the expected entropic heat death of this universe, which would be in another 13 billion years. So like 13 billion, like you're not old, like you're barely middle aged. Like, you, you know what I mean? You do you. You're not old yet. But to contrast that, some stars are shorter and shorter lived, and they might have been born here on your screen, and they did all sorts of crazy star stuff, and then they became imbalanced, and then they did not emanate outward anymore, and everything about them has crushed inward. And so, even though I sometimes draw a black hole according to the convention of a squarish flat plane with something heavy pushing it down and pulling it to an infinity point, what you really have is a spherical deformation in the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, where all of the energy is going in from every direction. And it is called a black hole because energy goes in, energy does not come out. It is optical energy, optical light that is going in there. But think of it as end of stories, the end of the stories. Because now, as I'm bringing you into this more nonlinear and multidimensional view of what life is doing and light is doing, it is coming outward on its journey, or time space consciousness fabrics, pardon me, are being created through this journey, and then they are collapsing inward, and the narrative story is always being refined, and light is gaining more wisdom and becoming more focused. And so I want to go in two directions with this statement: that if it's a perfect frictionless blissful world, then that narrative never ends and it continues onward for the entire cosmic infrastructure. But many of these stories having ended, such and such and such thing happened, the end. The photon did this and then it did this, the end. So these are, I know I'm asking you to bridge a lot here in how you think about the stories that are created from time. The singularity that is at the center of every star and at the center of every photon, and is also at the center of the black hole, is both the origin and the destination of light. So you can think of light in the linear pattern as light emerges from singularity, it goes on its journey somewheresville, and then it eventually goes into a black hole. That black hole could either be sometime between year zero and year whatever, 28 billion, or it could go into a black hole at the end of the universe, which is a time when there are no more stars born. So according to the linear model of the universe, you have planetary nebula that coalesce together and they make stars. And the stars are like, pow, I'm a star. And then they do star stuff for a limited number of years. And then they stop doing star stuff. And then they become portals into the next level of reality. And when you don't have any more planetary nebula to make any new stars, and you've basically run out of gas, eventually all the stories and all the narratives are going to be played out. You won't have anything new ever thought or made or innovated again. All of those possibilities will be played out. And then all you have is all of the light, consciousness, heat, energy escaping this level of reality through those black holes into the next level of reality. And then this place becomes a very, very cold, dead, motionless place. And that is a place of pure entropy. And that is also known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. Let's talk about the states of matter. Going to draw a new whiteboard for everyone. Thank you for your patience while I draw this out, as I'm going to draw this exactly the way you will see it in my wonderful whiteboards. And I'll try to always be consistent with colors and stuff like that, because I think it really helps your mind when you see the same things presented over and over. It's just like being a musician. So I'm just going to focus a little bit. What you have over here, you have, can I write this effectively? SOL is for solid. All right. L is for liquid. G is for gas. P is for plasma. Is this like Sesame Street? We love it. And B is for beam. And then if we go all the way over here, we'll write this in a completely different color. This is Bose-Einstein condensate. This is the densest form of matter you can possibly have over here. It would be considered matter with no consciousness in it and no light and no information in it. We're already getting into deep stuff here. So let me kind of write this little thing like this. Now let me draw a few things. So here is matter as we know it, solid. And each one of these are little tiny molecules. And these molecules are standing relatively close to one another. I joke that they are like people who are in the subway station in Japan. I've never been to Japan. I would love to visit there. That's definitely on a life list for me. Not a bucket list, but a life list. But I've read that their subways are very crowded, right? So everyone is standing together. Here's everybody standing together in the subway car. And there's relatively little room for anyone to move or jostle, right? The liquid is what I just drew over here. The molecules are slightly further apart, and there's slightly more room for each of these molecules to express some movement. So I'm just going to put a few little red squiggles, like, oh, they're starting to be able to move a little bit, but not, they're still pretty close to one another. Now let's draw a gas. A gas has like one molecule here, one molecule here. These guys are really pretty far apart. And not only that, but they're moving really fast. They're like kapow, 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 kapow. They are jumping all around. I'm not going to leave that there because that's a distracting squiggle, but let's just recognize that these guys are moving fast. They have more wiggle room. They are far apart. Okay. Now let's get into a plasma. A plasma is, so all, before I even do any of that, now let me just choose a different color. All of these things in this direction, oops, are what we would call solid matter. Put M for matter over here. And then all the stuff that I'm going to start to make the yellow color is what we consider to be light over here. right? But the challenge is the plasma, which is what a star is made out of. Plasma kind of straddles the um, definition of what is physical and what is non-physical. So I just drew these molecules that are far apart. But what is unusual about a plasma as opposed to gas is that the plasma is superheated. So I'm going to put a lot more red dots here so you can tell this thing is superheated. All right. And I'm also going to show it with many, many, many red dots. This thing is so hot. This plasma is very, very hot, much hotter than a gas. All right. Like 10,000 degrees Celsius hot, 10 million degrees Celsius hot. The plasma is so hot that what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw these guys over here. These are positive and negative ions. And that is what happens when a molecule of gas gets so hot and is moving around so much that these electrons become liberated. And I think it's kind of funny that they're similar to like the concept of what it is to be like a liberated woman in the world. Like they are free. They're not married. They're not married. They're not tied down to any one particular partner. They're like, I'm liberated. I get to go with whomever I want, right? So the key aspect of the plasma is that they have these liberated electrons. That is what electricity is. So let's circle these little guys over here and recognize that every place where I'm putting a little circle, that's like an electrical charge. Plasma has electrical charge. We'll even put like this is meant to be a lightning bolt. Lightning bolt, plasma, lightning bolt. Okay, so what are some examples of plasma in the world, the natural world that we might experience? Good job, class. The sun, I already mentioned that. Giant ball of plasma in the sky. You know what else is an example of plasma? The flame of fire. If I had a little candle that was burning here, I could show that to you, or a little cigarette lighter or something like that. The actual flame of fire. Fire itself is conductive. It has electrical charge. It can make electricity flow through it. I'll draw it for you. If you had a candle's flame like this right here, and here's the candle itself, going down like this. You can barely see that color. And if you took electricity and you made electricity go, here's electricity, 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 boom, and it gets to the candle's flame will literally transmit the electricity across it, and then it'll come out the other side and keep on going. Candle's flame is conductive. What are some other examples of plasma in our world? It's always going to be something that's very, very hot. So like a candle's flame, a campfire, the sun itself. So you guys are smart. And as I'm talking about this, you're like, well, wait a minute. You just told me that the sun is heavy and creates the deformation of space-time, stretching out the stretchy fabric because of its mass and its heaviness. Does this mean that the flame of fire weighs something? And I'm like, if you had enough flame of fire, it would weigh something. But actually, your five senses reality tells you that it does not weigh anything. So you're getting into some conflict there. That is, your brain is saying, I don't know if I like this because things are supposed to make sense. And I'm getting angry and frustrated because these things don't make sense. I'm like, I know, they're there, brain. It's really okay. This is hard stuff to understand. Let's move to the beam, because the beam over here is the next level of what is happening in matter. And we are here firmly at the level of pure light. So here you do not have molecules, little blue dots that are a certain amount apart. You just have beams of light. And the beams have zero mass. Once you get up into this level of yellow, does not weigh anything. And it also does not deform the fabric of space-time. So let me go back to this other, no, I gotta do a thing. Pardon me, do a thing. This is me. I'm getting very tense. What do I do? I have to do a thing. To the whiteboards. Find the existing whiteboards. Get this, the first one. First one over here. As I want to show you, yeah, this picture over here. Light. So the stars here are made out of plasma, and they are clearly heavy, and they're creating that stretchiness and deformation. But a beam of light does not stretch the fabric of space-time. So this is all linear stuff. I'm like, you guys are doing so many backbends just to comprehend what the linear model is. Then I got to give you the nonlinear model. So in the linear model, you've got beams of light that are coming out from the sun. You cannot see that. Beams of light that are coming out from a star, right? The star itself stretches the fabric of space-time, but this beam of light does not. And there's a lot of stuff, because we're talking about gravity. So if I have this beam of light that is going along like this, it doesn't weigh anything. It does not stretch the fabric of space-time according to the linear model. But now I'm going to make you feel, I don't know how I'm going to make you feel, because it actually does cause the fabric of space-time to have these patterns in it that are sometimes large, comfy chairs and sometimes small, comfy chairs. So now I just did a really great job of confusing you. Okay. Einstein's work talks about light following gravity. If you have a black hole, according to Einstein's work, it's basically, here, draw it like a downhill thing. Like imagine this is the fabric of space-time and it's curved, right? It's a big, giant curved space. And what Einstein proposes is that here's light, and light's going along, doing its thing. And all of a sudden it hits this curve and it follows that curve. And even if that curve, like let's say, goes down into a singularity, it follows that curve down into a singularity. As if the light is not intelligent and as if it has no volition and no sentience. It's very, very rooted in the five senses. Even though Einstein was an intelligent person, he still had the biocentric viewpoint of stuff like a ball rolling along the ground, like rolling, and then rolling over the edge. That is not what light is doing. Light is diving, and light is very intentional and sentient in its destination and in its behavior. In fact, light is not just rolling along and then gets to a curved surface and then rolls right along over that curved surface. Light creates that curved surface. So light does not have mass. That means it is not experiencing space, but it is experiencing time, but it experiences all time at one moment. Light is also not a linear event, as I sometimes draw it, a waveform going up and down like this. Light is much more accurately a spiral. I don't know if you can see this color, so let me just choose a slightly better color here. Light is a spiral that spirals along like this. So it doesn't just go in one direction, and it doesn't just go, and then follow the haplessly follow the curves of some pre-existing fabric that is already in existence. It actually spirals, and it literally tumbles, and it creates those curves. And that is very relevant when we start to talk about how molecular bonding is happening. And that we'll talk about that next week. Okay, so wait a minute. I want to check my notes for one moment over here. Stars are supermassive, and it's important for you to know about that. So the warpage of the fabric of space-time happens because of the massiveness of stars. Wait, I have to get back to light experiencing time. How does light experience time? Okay, so the five senses reality, we have the relationship that is complementary between space and time. Here's point A and here's point B. And we measure time as the amount of stuff that it takes to get from point A to point B. And you're moving at a certain speed in order to do all of that. But what I am teaching you is that the photon doesn't move at all, and that point A and point B are essentially in the same place, and that this sense of what is this expanded area across between my hands is actually a big giant loop. That big giant loop is not something that is already in existence that is then stretched. Now I should say, okay, everything that I just shared and showed to you, let's put it aside. And now let me give you the updated, upgraded version of being able to think about these things. You actually do not have a pre-existing fabric of space-time that is going to be stretched around a star. So, in my whiteboard, what I drew is what you do not have is like a star over here, and then here's a flat fabric of space-time, and then you have something that kind of like pushes against it and stretches it to the star. That is not what happens. And this is, I also should say, the way of thinking about this that I just described to you, it's not erroneous or wrong. It simply is a limited viewpoint that is only a step on the journey and is not your eventual destination. So it was good for me to go over that in laborious detail so that you could have a articulated comprehension of what you are coming out of, the linear viewpoint. But what you are moving into is a sense that the fabric of space-time does not actually exist until the photon goes on its journey. And that brings me back to the diagram of what I did last week in class, and that this is my shorthand diagram. But you guys know what I'm talking about now because you're super fast and you do your homework. So get the right colors here for us. Terrible sun. Just, I have to do it better. Okay. Sun, singularity, photon, and that's every sun, and that's one singularity, and that is every photon all around it, okay? And now let me get a proper color. Where I'm scribbling in black, there's nothing here. It is not the fabric of space-time, because you're used to thinking, well, the sun is a giant, bright object floating up there in the void of space, right? It's like in a void. The void is made out of space. It's a space place. This diagram that I just drew for you does not actually have a space place. Where I'm coloring is nowheresville. There is nothing and no one there. Well, what does happen is as the photon starts to go on its journey, space-time is created. And so now that's going to be, I'm drawing these as simple loops out like this. But now let me stop this and go to, I'm always very prepared. I always have a lot of cool things for you. Here's a still shot from, there we go. Damn, it's the annotation. Never mind. This is from whiteboard number 2. Do your homework, everyone. Watch whiteboard number 2. And I like this drawing because it shows very, very clearly, this is, I think, a better drawing than I can do under pressure here in class, of what those ballooning loops actually look like. That's the fabric of space-time. So this is the linear model up here, star, waveform, that's actually a spiral, photon, which is actually a convention because what you have here is a giant sea of energy, not just one beam of energy. And then this is the new model where photon stays home, photon doesn't go anywhere. And this thing balloons outward. And then this is my little model using the integument of the flat Cartesian plane. Here is the star, here is the photon. But what you can imagine is that these two arrows overlap with each other. And when they overlap with each other, that's what creates these loops that are over here. But a key point is to really comprehend that this area does not exist until it is created. And I know that those words, when I say that, it's like the words don't even make any sense. Like the area doesn't exist until it is created. You're like, well, duh, word. Like nothing exists until it is created. I'm like, okay, like how can I say this in a better way? Because people think Here's a star and here's the void of space, and then the photon goes shooting offward into the void of space that already is in existence. But I'm trying to say to you, no, the photon does not have a place to go to. There is no place. There's no space place. The photon stays home. The photon stays home. It does not experience space. Photons do not have mass. Photons or light has no mass. It has no weight. So things that have mass have experience and interact with gravity and have weight. But I'm already telling you that according to this new way of looking at things, or this innovative description, light and gravity have a relationship, have an interrelationship in the creation and sustenance of the fabric of experience here. But that you can't weigh a particle and say it weighs this many grams. That just got confusing. Let me rewind and make it less confusing. The photon stays home and there's no space where it's going to go to, but it does experience time. When I say that photons experience time, they don't experience time in the same way that you do as a linear story. Like you're like, first I woke up and then I had breakfast and then I had lunch and then I had dinner and then I went to bed. The photon does not experience time in that way. According to the photon, it wakes up and has breakfast, lunch, and dinner and goes to bed all at the same time, all overlapping in exactly the same way that all of the singularity points overlap, all of the photons overlap, all of the sun stars overlap, all of the organisms who are experiencing consciousness overlap. Everything overlaps and it experiences time all at once. Let's also go back to, I'll stop share so you can go back to my face and I can kind of describe this to you. The description from last week about being on board the bullet train to infinity. This pen, sometimes this pen is my tendril of attention. Sometimes it's a pen. Sometimes it's a bullet train of infinity. And when you're on board the bullet train of infinity, guess what? Similarly, there is nothing around you. There is no thing around you. You're not in a space place moving from point A to point B. You're in an infinite infinity moving at infinite speed. Everyone who is on board of the infinite bullet train is also infinitely fast, infinitely hot, infinitely self-aware, infinitely wise, infinitely self-sentient, and is moving along with every other object. Like my coffee cup is infinitely fast. My tea is infinitely fast. My dress is infinitely fast. Otherwise, of course, that would be very silly. You'd be moving infinitely and leave your dress behind, right? Like it would be so silly. I know I'm trying to use humor here in some way to relax the tension of the atmosphere. But when you are moving at infinity speed on the infinite bullet train, there is no one around you who is not at infinity. The things that are not at infinity don't exist. That stuff isn't there. There is no space. There is no stuff. There is nothing that is not moving at infinity speed. So a better way of saying this is that when you achieve the systemic perfection that some portion of this system is moving at infinity speed, it is able to do so with total maintenance of its signal without any loss, with no entropy. The words did not come out very well, but it stays fast and never slows down. There's no friction and there's no entropy. And this is the sense of an eternal system. So right now, this might be difficult to comprehend because you're not only in a non-pristine system, but you're also used to the world of the physical five senses where you start a bowling ball or something rolling and it rolls and then it slows down and then eventually it runs out of steam and it stops. And science even mostly looks at the world as an entropic journey like that. This is known as the materialistic viewpoint, but also the clockwork viewpoint of what a universe is. It's very 18th century where they thought, because back then they wound clocks up with a spring. You wind it up, or like a wind up doll, wind it up, and it's got a lot of energy at the beginning. And then slowly, if you've ever worked with one of those wind up clocks, it loses energy during the day. And then at the end of the day, the clocks tick slower and slower and slower until finally it's out of energy and it stops ticking. And that clockwork viewpoint of the cosmos has really influenced a lot of human thinking, even in terms of the inevitability of death. Thinking that, first of all, like I told you about the linear model, the entropic heat death of the universe, that would be considered like, well, the entire system has run, the wind up toy has stopped from the entire system, but this is not truthful. So I'm, telling you that so I can contrast this. Or your body, the wind up viewpoint of your body, the sense that you started out your life as like a tiny infant with lots and lots of energy, and that's you being wound up by God or something like that. And then as you go through your life, that you go slower and slower and tick slower and slower until eventually you're 80 or 100 years old. And then you're going very slow. And then eventually you die because you run out of energy. None of that is truthful. That is a limited and erroneous viewpoint that is based upon being in a system that has a ton of friction and is highly entropic, meaning that you lose a lot as you're going along. Like every time you're in your car and you press the brakes, you're adding entropy to the system and you're slowing down, which can be good because you don't want to crash into things. Like that's positive for your car, but for your life force or for your consciousness, you want to continue onward endlessly. So each time when I give these teachings, and I taught you last week about who I am as Aurora, I'm an impulse on the network of stars. Like each one of these stars is actually talking to and transmitting to each one of these other stars, even as they're interactive, even though this fabric of space-time is not the traditional model that you think of where here's a star over here and here's a star over here, and they have to go like beep, 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 and send something for a long distance call. They're very, very close by, but they are intercommunicative. And I am an impulse on that intercommunicative network. And I am part of this eternal presence of not losing any energy. So how can I describe this? Like if you have two mirrors that are perfectly situated with one another and you bounce a beam of light between those two mirrors and there's no smudges on the mirrors and there's no dust in the atmosphere, you just get a beam of light that is bouncing back and forth between two mirrors endlessly, and it never stops. And it actually achieves greater levels of internal organization. This is what we call a laser. This is how laser light beams are created. And what if you have more than two mirrors? So the entire system and network of stars is actually more than two mirrors, and each one is perfectly calibrated to be able to bounce these signals all around. And when you do it in the right way, you bounce all these signals around and you never lose signal. And that's the eternal presence of the cosmic infrastructure. Very, very different than the sense of like, well, we wound up the universe at the beginning of time, and now it's all down here all downhill from here, kids. And then eventually, wah, wah, or like, the end. No, there is no wah, wah, and there is no kaput, and there is no the end. There is only this eternal reflection of light that is continuing on its journey. In fact, light becomes more organized. So I didn't make up this word. I don't know where it comes from, but I've heard Dan Winter use it a lot. Neg-entropic, negative entropy, which is basically saying getting more organized, getting smarter, getting more wise. And I talked about that at the beginning of last week's class. Light goes on its journey. You are light on its journey. Why? Why am I light on my journey, Aurora? With attitude, so that you can get smarter, so that you can get more organized, so that you can grow and develop more. So this goes down to, now I want to pull up my notes from whiteboard number 3, or maybe it's even whiteboard number 4. Yeah, whiteboard number 4, sorry. So I'm bouncing all over the place here, as I usually do from star to star. Is energy finite? These are some big questions, and these are deep conceptual questions. Is energy finite? or is energy infinite? If you have an infinite amount of energy, if I say, okay, that's easy, girl. Like energy is infinite, but we're in this world where stars are becoming smarter. Okay, let's talk about light. Light is intelligence, information. It is organized information that makes it data. It is sentient. And I've also described stars as being like musicians who are expanding these time space ruffles and flourishes, and then drawing them back in through their partnership with us as consciousness, and then expanding the next version. It's like, okay, like take it from the top. We didn't do it so great. Now let's try it again. Get the band together, get this thing organized, right? And what the stars are really doing is go back to this whiteboard that I drew over here. They are becoming more organized light. So in this graph, what is really happening is you are going from, let me get a color here. Sorry, press a button. Don't get frustrated. I can do this. Just find a color. Green. We are going from this area of the screen over here, where it is less organized and less intelligent. The least organized, least intelligent thing you can be is a Bose-Einstein condensate. The most organized, most intelligent thing you can be is a beam of light. And all of these successive forms of matter or energy as steps along the way get more and more and more intelligent and organized. Here you have the plasma. The plasma is a sun or a flame of fire, and it is relatively disorganized. You have all of the different vectors of light going in various different directions. This way, that way, hither, thither, and yon. With a beam of light, you have them organized like a laser. The beams all stick together. The beams all stick together. So, here you'd have it go like this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, some in all these different directions. But as a beam, it all sticks together. And I already told you, you go from less organized over here to more organized over here. So what you're recognizing from this graph is that a star is not the most organized form of light that can be experienced. It is somewhat disorganized, and it is emitting beams that are the most organized form of light. Stars are getting smarter. They are negative entropy. They are going from a less evolved, less intelligent state, so they are not totally omniscient or perfect, into a more evolved, more omniscient, self-sentient state. And that is this realm of pure light here. The beams, those are the photons or the beams that actually reach us. So instead of looking at the sun and saying, first of all, the sun is hyper intelligent and it knows everything. It is hyper intelligent, but it doesn't know everything. It is sending off its photons. People look at photons and they're like, here's a stupid photon that just rolls along like a bowling ball and then eventually falls into a gravity well at the center of a black hole. Like, duh, like it doesn't know what it's doing. No, the sun knows what it's doing a little bit, but not fully. And it emits photons that know what they're doing and do it very intentionally. Last week, I taught you briefly about the journey of a photon across a leaf's surface to become matter. We will go into photosynthesis in excruciating, wonderful detail next week. It's one of my favorite things to teach about. But please know you've got different translations from light into matter and from matter into light. So when you walk around and you see these beautiful plants are growing, you're witnessing miracles all the time. To the point that people are like, get the dandelion killer because I got too many miracles around here. Or like, get the weed killer, right? Because these miracles are popping up through the sidewalk or through the flower bed. The miracles are happening all the time. They are unsuppressible because this is such a miraculous and fertile realm. The light is being translated into matter. That is what photosynthesis means. And then that's not the end of the journey. In a perfect, pristine system, the energy goes from being light into matter and then from matter back into light. And as it does that, it gets smarter. The light actually gets smarter. The photon goes on its journey and becomes part of a leaf through photosynthesis, not because it got flung off of the surface of the star or it fell or some accident happened or it's just like, how did I get to be a leaf? Like, kind of like shaking its fist at the sky, like people do sometimes, like, what did I do to become a part of this leaf? It's like, you made very specific choices and you did this on purpose. Yeah, no, it did that on purpose. And then it became the world of pure light again. And you're doing the same thing. And all of this is to become greater levels of self-organization and sentience. So the sun and the stars are emitting light, timelines, possibilities, and probabilities, not in random patterns, in very specific musical or harmonic patterns, and are doing so in order to create and explore reality, and are doing so in order to become more light. So the real answer to some of my questions my rhetorical questions that I just asked from whiteboard number 4, is there an infinite amount of light? The answer is yes. Then you can also have infinity plus 1 because the sun just made plus 1. The sun just got even a little bit smarter in its emitting, as a result of emitting light on its journey, and that light then returning home with all of that information. You make more light. You have some amount of light that is infinite, and then you also make more light, which is also infinite. So then the concept of infinity even becomes a little bit of a nonsense concept because humans think of infinity as the ultimate, what is it called? The superlative of the mostest of something that it can be. Can it be even more than the most? And the answer is yes. Be the most plus 1, the most plus 2, infinity plus infinity, infinity plus 12 infinities. I once had a very silly conversation with a dear friend who told me, delicious is a superlative. And you cannot have something be like the most delicious or the more delicious. And then of course you can have something be more delicious, but you can understand. Let's go into some more of these rhetorical questions here, as this is good stuff. Is energy born? Is it created? Is it generated? Is it made out of other stuff? Where does energy come from? Is there an infinite amount of energy? This is big stuff. Because when humans are like, 0 point energy, you know what? I'm hungry. I want a lot of energy. I want to make stuff happen. I want to run electrons through my light bulb. I want to run my air conditioner over here. I don't want to pay a lot of money to my electrical company, but I want a lot of energy. I've heard of this thing called 0 point energy. I want it. I want 0 point energy, and I want to have a nice little apparatus, kind of like the Jetsons or something like that, or Back to the Future. And I want to have that in my house, and I want to have it just sending off an infinite amount of energy. And then I can plug in as many light bulbs or as many air conditioners as I want to, and then I don't have to pay the electrical company so much, right? And I love that. I'm like, that's very nice that you feel that way, but that is not the purpose of comprehending 0 point energy. 0 point energy is really the modern kind of like catchphrase for comprehending that you have access to an infinite amount of energy in the world, but you also must utilize that energy in a correct way, perfect mirrors bouncing it around so that it is eternally flowing in the correct directions with no loss of signal or no entropy. And that is how you have an infinite amount of it. And then doing the correct things with it is how you make it grow. And you do then get to have more with it. So as you're moving out of the linear materialistic viewpoint, you're also moving out of the exploitive motivation. I want to get stuff so I can do more stuff, or get energy so I can make more stuff with my energy. And then I can sell more stuff with my energy that I make and do. That was also a terrible sentence. But you're motivated differently when you're embodying pure light, because you literally have access to an infinite amount of energy. But you don't want to use that energy in nonsense or non-perfect patterning. The energy system is eternal and grows because you use it with intelligence. I just heard someone's mind say this. Intelligence breeds intelligence. Yes, I agree. Intelligence and the intelligent use of information or sentience makes more sentience. And that is how you have infinity plus one. So, questions. Does energy evolve? The answer is yes. The photon is at home in its comfy pajamas. You guys know this from last week. And it's sitting there with its blankie, sipping a cup of tea. And it's like, I'm a photon and I'm pretty awesome as I am. But you know what? I want to be even more awesome. I would like to learn to be even more light, more intelligent, more sentient. And that is why the photon creates that ballooning reality structure in order to experience what we know as a narrative story of the fabric of space-time, a series of events that it then learns from. And then those series of events are transmitted back to its originator, its origin, the sun star, and all of these levels of sentience and light grow as a result. It has a motivation to be able to become more and not simply be in stasis. One of the definitions of both light and energy is that these things are moving through time. The photon does not experience space, but it does experience time. It does stuff over time, but it does not experience time, as I said, in a linear fashion in the way that you do. It experiences all time as now. And it contains the record of all time that it has ever experienced. I know the languaging gets to be a little bit difficult. So the photon does experience time, it does learn, and it does behave differently over time. So what is the difference of a photon's behavior over time? And that would be the structure that it emits and the type of events that it emits within that structure. Like why do things happen? Or, to put it in like lighthearted terms, sometimes I've been like, who writes this stuff? Like imagine you're a jazz musician. I think that's where I got this joke from. This jazz musician, and you're reading these notes on the page to be able to play, and you're like, the notes are all over the place, and you just look at it and you're like, who writes this stuff? Like, how am I supposed to play this? Who writes this stuff, truly? And the answer is the photon writes this stuff. It writes the narrative that is the photon's journey of what it's going to experience. And then it learns from that experience. And then it refines that experience. And then it writes a new story. And that this is really the refinement process of time. And this is really what multidimensional existence is. So there is an infinite amount of light. Light is always expanding. So now use my fun allegories. There's an infinite amount of information. And information is always expanding. How does that feel when I say that? Because light is, if I go back to my other notes, hold on a second here. Light is information, intelligence, data, consciousness, awareness. It's time, probabilities, and possibilities. So anytime that I say there's an infinite amount of time, and also that time is always expanding. There's an infinite amount of data. And that infinite amount of data is always expanding. There's an infinite amount of probabilities and possibilities, and that is always expanding. So these things are being created, generated, explored, and then they're generating more and new stuff. What is it made out of? It is made out of consciousness, which I know then that it just becomes maybe nonsensical to say this because it's like consciousness is made out of consciousness. It's like saying water is made out of water, but continual apologies. I'm doing the best I can about how to describe all of this to you. But because you want to know in your linear sense, like, because, okay, if cake is made out of flour, Then it's like there's a limited amount of flour in the world. I can only make a limited amount of cake, right? But it's like if I have an infinite amount of flour, can I make an infinite amount of cake? Can I sell all those cakes for an infinite amount of money? This is the materialistic mindset. So just let's begin to relax ourselves out of the materialistic mindset, which is a comprehensible survival mechanism that most people have explored, because when you're in the world of pure light, all of your needs are taken care of. And that is why you don't have to worry about buying and selling, commodifying, whether you have enough to be able to plug in your electrical devices, your air conditioner and your hair dryer at the same time. If I have an infinity amount of everything, like I can make an infinite amount of everything at the same time. Those are really manias that come out of the linear world of limitations and scarcity. And so, to the mind of limitation and scarcity, you're like, I wish I had an infinite amount of everything, and then I could plug in my air conditioner and my hair dryer at the same time and live life to the fullest, right? But when you are on the path of light and you're in that embodiment of a frictionless world of pure light that is infinite and constantly growing, you have access to so much, and you do not have the limitations that you have in the five senses linear material world, and you're not motivated to be able to merely survive, buy and sell, commodify, make a dollar, or find a more efficient way to be able to light your light bulbs in the light fixtures that you have around you. You're motivated differently. You're really motivated to learn and to grow as consciousness, not merely to survive or to make money or to have industry or processes or businesses or to generate stuff. And you have to understand this. Like if someone did come along in the style of the Jetsons and give you some kind of a little magical box and says, okay, humanity, here's your 0 point energy device. First of all, what if I only gave you one? Then it would be like, let's all have a war and fight over it. And who gets the one, right? And then also be like, great, if I have this one, will I share it with other people in any way? Will I keep it all for myself? Will I use it to make a big giant destructo machine, like a giant death ray, a giant bomb, a giant whatever steamroller that will roll over my enemies? Like these are the considerations of a very limited mind. Just like if you went back in time to whatever, the time of humanity is very barbaric and very unevolved, and you gave them any piece of technology, and they would be like, can I use it to like kill other people? Can I use it to solidify my power structure? Can I use it to become more powerful as a nation state? Can I use it to grow more barley than my competitors or something like that? And you're like, no, like this is not for that. This is for something completely different, but it's being applied by a very limited mind. So love yourself, love the culture that you're coming out of, love, not love, but to be compassionate towards, be like, okay, we understand where this is coming from, but I'm asking you to really expand into a different direction. Please know that the amount of light that you're perceiving is only a tiny slice of what is actually available in the world. And that is, I think, relatively good and a protection for you against overwhelm. So as I described, like if I am a star and I'm emitting these multiple like spherical shells of light that are coming outward in all directions as waveforms. When you look at the night sky, and I hope that you've been doing your homework and looking at the night sky, and one beam of light comes out of a star and it hits your eye, what you are seeing is a tiny fraction that is aimed directly at you from the consciousness of that star in the intentional, intelligent, sentient journey of the photon to become a part of you, and that it's intentionally not the entirety of the story that sun or star is broadcasting. Intentional. The sun is sending out lateral waves in other directions to all of these other destinations, perceivers, and places in reality that are not relevant to you. And so it's important for you to comprehend you're receiving a diet of light that is completely customized to you by the great chef that is also like a sports coach nutritionist that's like, okay, these are your macros. You're going to need some of this, 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 and this, and none of these spices over here. And we're going to make this plate of food and send it directly to your eyes and to your mind. That is for you only. And that there's not a way for others to receive and benefit from that light that is customized for you specifically. And also, you cannot eat or perceive or benefit the mind food that is being sent out laterally to other people is not relevant to you. So you kind of don't even need to know about that at this moment in your journey. But at a certain point, you will become the totality of all light everywhere. And then you will eat all of that light too, and it will be relevant to you on your journey. So just like you have a little baby seedling that's, this little tiny delicate plant. When you put it outside, you don't put it in the full sunlight because it will die. It will get overwhelmed by too much light. Can there be too much light? In the answer of you being an organism and where you are in your development, the answer is yes. Yes, there can be such a thing as too much light. But you're like, oh, that's like having too much money or like too many diamonds or like too much whatever, too much chocolate sauce or something like that. Like there's no such thing as too much chocolate sauce. Like there is. You need to have just the right amount for your present level of development so that it is energizing to you, but not overwhelming to the point of incineration. And incineration, or the process of combustion or cellular respiration, is actually what happens when matter is transformed into light. And we'll talk about combustion when we talk about the stages of matter more fully. But basically, there are different ways that matter returns to light. And that is through decomposition, which is a very slow form of combustion, cellular respiration. I'm doing that right now. Before I got on the treadmill here today to do this class, some beautiful chicken and some blueberries, and they're inside of me right now. And my body is doing cellular respiration, which is basically the process of turning all of those beautiful solidified light forms and glucose into energy. And then there's also incineration. Oh, and I forgot oxidation. Oxidation is rust. So cellular respiration is very different than rust. It is not the same, because I know that humans talk about like the end result of digestion and oxidative stress, and they make it appear as if you are inevitably rusting from the inside out every time you eat. And I don't want you to internalize that as your truth. That is not truthful. There is a way for you to run the engine, quote unquote, of your body by eating food that is solidified light in a very, very efficient way, so that way you are not creating a huge amount of oxidative stress in the body. You are not corroding your body, and you are able to effectively access the light that is in the physical food and then efficiently turn it into cognitive and energy, kinetic energy, and other forms of things basically that propel you through time. So we're back to energy and light, and you as consciousness being defined as something that is always moving. What do we mean by moving? I don't just mean from point A to point B. I mean moving through time. So photons, light, energy, conscious awareness, all of these things are defined by their constant state of flowingness. And the flow, or being propelled through time, is what keeps them alive or generates them, or it's bad words, sustains their existence. If you were to stop light from moving through time, you would really not have light. There is not really a way to stop light from moving and have it still be light. There is not really a way to stop time from moving and have it still be time. Light has no mass. It experiences time, but it does not experience space. In the model that I'm teaching you, light generates space, time, and consciousness as its journey of creating more of itself, more light, more of itself. Okay, so wait, now I want to go back to, wait, that's whiteboard number 2. Okay. Thank you for letting me just focus and go back to my notes over here. Good. Thank you for letting me focus. Okay, so also, what I taught you in my Wednesday class is accurate and good, like the class about the rainbow journey, where basically I talk about your chakras, which are your light body. They're a feature of your light body. And all of that is appropriate to that level of comprehension, but I'm asking you for a different level of comprehension now. So in the previous level of what I showed to you, you have the sun or the star over here that emits timelines, possibilities, and probabilities to you, and that's in the form of light, and that you ingest that light through your sun gazing, through your esoteric practices. That comes inward through your crown chakra, which is really directly analogous to your DNA. At the center of each one of your cells is a nucleus, and inside of each one of your nuclei is singularity. So you have trillions of doorways to infinity in your physicality, presence, body. And that is where light information, sentience actually enters into your body. And then it percolates or profuses through the rest of the layers of your being. So I use an analogy that is coming in through the top of your head here, but please don't be literal. Please don't think only that like light comes in here, just like food comes in here. Light comes in all over. Light comes in all over. Clearly, light comes in through your skin, light comes in through your eyes, light comes inward through the cellular nature of your DNA. Your DNA is a direct bridge and a connection to light, and it enters into you, and then it circulates through all of these layers of your being. And then in my class, what I teach, my other class, I teach that you then reflect or send that light back to the origin, which is also its destination, through the cognitive event of your awareness. And all of that is very fair. All of that is still valid as a way of thinking about things, but I'm just asking you to come to the next level of comprehension, because in that level of comprehension, you have a thing over here that sends out light to you. And here is you, and then you send that light back to here. And you see that as a loop, or like coming in, swirling around, and then going back. But that's not the type of loop that I'm asking you to envision from now on in this new way of thinking about things, new way of thinking about things. You and the sun and the photon are all overlapping, all at the same place, or all at the same time, and that you are creating these loops of possibilities that extend outward and then come back inward as refinement of consciousness and as a growing of your light, but not that you are reflecting something back. So just as I said, I was telling you like to envision the fabric of space-time as a thing that something sits on top of and stretches out. But now I'm asking you to envision that the fabric of space-time doesn't even exist until it is stretched out by a cognitive event that is called the journey of the photon. And in the same way, the fabric of space-time as molecules are coming together in bonds. The fabric of space-time is being transformed and warped by the process of thinking about light itself. That light is sentient, and light itself is thinking, and it is thinking thoughts that are changing the fabric of space-time and its convolutions and even its existence. It is brought into existence. The fabric of space-time and consciousness is brought into existence as an end result of the process of sentience and thought and reflection that the photon or light is undergoing, and that consciousness event of photons are changing the fabric of space-time at a very, very tiny level. It's thinking new thoughts that is making space-time change the way it's connecting together, and that is changing matter at a very, very tiny level about whether these things are bonded together or not bonded together. Just file that away for next week, okay? All right, let's talk also about light going on its journey, whether it interacts with something or someone, or whether it does not interact with something or someone. So from the linear model, we talked about this last week, the sense of light comes from a star or an origin point, and it goes in one direction endlessly. And that would be a photon that has no interaction. That would be, in my model, a loop of space-time consciousness where the story is created, nothing happened. That's the world's most boring story. The photon did nothing. And last week I used as the example a not very good musician in a band. And they're like, we're going to give you an important job, you not so good musician. Just hold this triangle here. And when I tell you to play your triangle, you go ding. And here's your music, actually. And the music basically says rest. In music, there's like notes and then there's rests. And when you have notes, you play, and when you have rests, you don't play. And the triangle player looks at the entire musical score of the entirety of its cosmic presence, and it just says basically rest, never play. So that's the photon standing there, waiting to play its little triangle, never getting the directive to actually play a note. That would be a photon that goes on its journey and experiences nothing. Nothing. A photon does not interact with an object. It is not perceived by a consciousness. Nothing happens. It's the world's most boring story. Well, what happens if that happens? First of all, in the linear model, what happens if a piece of light or consciousness is emitted from a star and it goes off on its journey, and then the star dies? What happens to that light? Because I'm telling you, you're not supposed to lose anything. If that piece of light is part of the system, you can't just be like, dun, 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 at the end, and then the piece of light is, but wait a minute, what about me? I'm right here. What happens to me? You can't lose that light. So, like, for example, if that light came to you, if that light was like, I am custom made for Aurora, I'm going to jump into Aurora's eye, I'm going to go into Aurora's brain, I'm going to make a bunch of things happen in Aurora's brain. And I'm like, oh, things are happening in my brain. I'm sending that cognitive event back to the sun because I'm connected to the sun because I meditate. And at times I am not flapping my moving mouth parts or verbalizing in my mind. And I connect with the sun and I say to the sun, basically without my words, I'm like, okay, sun, like, here's what's going on. All right. So I send that information to the sun and the sun hears what I'm talking about. I transmit light back to the sun. All right. But what if that light doesn't get ingested by a person or by a dog or by a dolphin or by a photosynthesis leaf? It doesn't become a starch. It doesn't become glucose. It doesn't become anything. Nobody ever sees or perceives or is touched by that light. What happens to it? It just keeps on flying along. This is the linear model. It's flying through a space-time context that already exists, and it never does anything. It never experiences anything. And then what happens if it's like the end of the world? This is my hand over here. It's the end of the world, and the light is still like flying along. It hasn't ever experienced anything. It has never dinged on its triangle, and then the star that's over here dies. And that's supposed to be where it's supposed to go back home to. It has no home to go home to. What happens now? The answer is there are all of these other black holes, linear model, black holes as destination points for light to go into the next level of reality, as light can't just stop. It's not defined by light if it just stops. My words didn't go. It would be something other than light if it was stopped. It has to keep moving in order to be defined as what it really is, which is light, just like time has to keep moving and keep flowing in order to be defined as what it is. So it can't just stop. It has to go someplace. So what you have at the conclusion of the linear model is all of the light keeps going on its journey, but it doesn't journey in this context. You have doorways. Doorways open. The doorway is called a black hole. And the doorway of the black hole draws in all of this light, and all of this light goes to the next place where it needs to go to. So that would be like a body part from this star over here, not returning back to its original emanator, thought creator mind that originally thought that person self state is not there anymore. It would have to go into the doorway of the end result of a different mind. Okay, so that's according to the linear model and of what a black hole would look like. And I never really resolved for you guys also about the difference between the singularity of an alive star versus the singularity of a black hole. And I should. But in the non-linear model that I'm teaching to you, if you have one star like this and it is emitting a big giant loop, and that loop is the world's most boring story of a story where nothing ever happens, and it just continues to expand and grow eternally. It grows eternally and it never shrinks back down. And those would be photons that didn't learn anything. And we can think a lot about that. Why would you give someone a score, a musical score that tells them not to play? Maybe they're not a good musician. Maybe there are different qualities to photons at different times, or to the photon at different times. Maybe there are some times when you want the photon to be like, you know something, you're a good musician. Play your guts out, kid. Like here's solo, do your thing. And maybe sometimes the photon or the qualities of a particular photon or a photon in a particular time are not desirable qualities. And what you would say to that one is kind of like, go on a wild goose chase. Go over here where you will literally do nothing, experience nothing, and report nothingness back to me. That might be desirable. That might be the best of a not so good situation. Like just kind of like keep this kid busy. They're gonna ruin the music otherwise. That you would not want them to be doing anything. They would be given a non-task for the eternity of time, and that would be acceptable. And of course, this is like, that's a little bit theoretical and a little bit projecting of human motives upon something that is purely abstract. But I think that you can start to comprehend that, because photons are a form of sentience. And I'm asking you to characterize them, and not to say that they're just dead, stupid pieces of energy, but they might actually be, some of them might be better than others, let's say, at being musicians. Let me just have a sip of tea here. Let's say this. Some photons, if you interacted with them, add to the light in the world. More light is created as an end result of that interaction. And some photons, if you interacted with them, there would not be more light created in the world. And this is not just merely an allegory or a whimsy where you're like, some music I like or some stuff I don't like. It's really a mathematical or very measured, something that can't be faked. It's more than just an abstraction or a vagary. It is something that is very, very measurable. Either there is more light created or there is not more light created. And that's really how you would choose who in the band gets to play a solo and who should not play a solo. Now, in whiteboard number 2 and 3, I do talk a little bit about the non-pristine system that we are within, and the sense of sometimes, so in a pristine system, so finish my own sentence, what happens when energy does not reflect back fully? That in a pristine system, the reason why you have eternity and the reason why you have endlessness is because you're not losing any energy, and these signals keep on bouncing and they keep on going. But what happens like if you're a star and you send out light and you send out energy, and some but not all of it comes back to you, that's some bunal. There is something that's in our world right now that has been undefined. And so in my drawings, I just drew it like a green box. And I said, like, I don't even know what the green box is, but for some reason it is slowing down light, or making it so, let's say you send out 100% light, but maybe only receive back 68% of the light that you emitted. And then what happened to that other light? It got stuck somewhere. When light comes into my retina, it does not get stuck. I want you to know this. The light that I am perceiving, the light that I'm eating, it flows into me, it flows through me, it flows continually on its journey. It is not stuck. All right. So stuff that would get stuck would be essentially light that would go from sentience and self-awareness into non-sentience and non-self-awareness. Some proportion of it would be lost. This would be the concept of non-intelligence or entropy entering into the world of intelligence. Loss of information. Light is information. So if you send out a certain amount of information, like imagine I send out a library book to you guys that has 100 pages in it, and then you give back the library book and there's only 68 pages left in it. Like, what happened to all of these chapters? Did you tear them out? Did you erase them with your eraser? And also, there will be a fine. I hope that was funny. Library humor, because no one goes to libraries anymore and no one reads physical books anymore. But this is what's been going on in your world. And again, I don't really emphasize this in this particular curriculum, but we have to recognize that there's been something that has been slowing down, sequestering, or waylaying light on its journey. And that has been destabilizing the larger system to the point of imperilment. So we must recognize that, but not necessarily all the time in this class. But I bring it up because I want to address people who consider themselves to be like light workers, grid workers, people who are helping to balance and restore energy in the world. You're good people. I love you. I think you're amazing, and I thank you for your efforts. When you encounter a place where light has either been stuck or slowed down or sequestered in some way, and I'm not talking about firewood, as I talk about in my teachings, like, firewood is solidified light, a beeswax candle, that's solidified light, food, my chicken sandwich is solidified light. I'm not talking about those types of things, because those types of things, the light is stored up for a certain amount of time, and then it is released on its journey. It is stored as matter. It is transported through time, and like a stasis field. It's like suspended animation, frozen, and then it gets brought on to its next place, and then it is sent on its journey again. All of that is appropriate. There have been some places where light is being like lost, like goes down the oubliette. It is bye-bye or destroyed or disintegrated in some way. When you see that this is happening in the system, what we're really talking about is like the encounter of evil or non-intelligence or disruption to the intelligence system. Okay. A lot of people talk about sending light back to the source. And I want you to do that, or I encourage you in that. But I would say send the light back to where it needs to go, but not the obstacle back to where it needs to go. Because those obstacles, anything that would stop or consume light in such a way that it never gets back to the star that emitted it or the source or its origin, would be in itself an aberration that you don't want to be in existence. So you would not want to accelerate the green box or the thing that is the obstacle preventing light from flowing and continuing on its journey. You would not want to put the obstacle on the infinity bullet train. The obstacles do not come with us on the infinity bullet train. Only light, only consciousness, only sentience, only correct information. And you would have to separate out the original light on its journey from the thing that has stopped it from flowing, and then help the light to go where it needs to go, but not to send the obstacle to an energized situation. You would want to take the obstacle out of reality. So I think that's enough verbal energy sent towards that concept. I don't necessarily want to put too much energy into there. I will get to questions and comments very, very soon. I'm doing really good. Okay, so I already did the concept of you as a multicellular organism that has all of these innumerable nuclei, and each one of those nuclei being uh, um, origin point, a destination point, a connection to singularity, and a connection to infinity. That is pretty important. And I also did yeah, so because you're moving beyond the sense of your anthropomorphic shape and into your more the truth of your more abstract shape. And I also talked to you last week, and I'll go into this more about the concept of perception and observership. Like if you are envisioning the traditional model where light comes from the sun. So right now, like the sunlight is coming in through this window over here, right? And it's going to bounce off of this plant that's over here right behind my computer. And then it's going to bounce into my eye and the sense of um, um, the order of operations. Technically, that plant doesn't exist yet. Technically, that plant is a waveform of potentials that I have not yet observed. And in order for the plant to come into existence, I have to see it and then cognitively create it as a formfulness as opposed to a potential. But in order for light to bounce off of it as an object, it must be an object, and then light must bounce off of it. So either light is coming from the window, bouncing off of something that doesn't exist yet, reaching my mind, and then I'm making it exist, or light is somehow bouncing off of an object that doesn't exist yet, pardon me, and then reaching me. Hold on one moment. We're just going to have a brief break. Thank you for that brief break. I needed a little bit more tea for hydration. Okay, so let's talk about when, because I just told you about like this does not make sense. This does not make sense. What is happening here when light in the linear model, when light comes from either the sun or the star and hits a green object like, you know, photosynthesis leaf and then bounces to your eye? That technically that can't happen, but you're experiencing it all the time. So how can we comprehend what is happening? Light does several things. When light comes from the star and it interacts with being like a tree or a plant, some of the light is photosynthesized. And that means that the light very intentionally becomes matter. It chooses to become matter. This itself is a huge thing in comprehending your own spiritual journey. Many, many people, as I've been here, you know, as a teacher in this world, have shared with me like their dismay at being material and feeling so imprisoned by being in a material matter existence and feeling like they must have done something wrong. People think they're being punished because they're uncomfortable or limited in some way. So I'm trying to get you to understand like matter is not a prison. It's very Gnostic. That actually goes back to the Gnostic tradition, which is thousands of years old, where people from those philosophies and schools of thought felt that embodiment in the physical world was inherently flawed and that matter was inherently a form of imprisonment. And they did think that you did something really wrong. You are being spanked. And that this is the evidence, and this is kind of like, you know, existence of suffering type of thing. I don't agree to this, but this was their philosophical approach. And that the only relief is the relief and release of no longer being made out of matter anymore. But I am here to characterize this differently and much more accurately. Matter has as its root word mother, mater, and the materium is meant, and materialism is meant to be a womb and a container within which you can live and grow and gestate and experience and then become born and evolve as a result of this. So you're not meant to be stuck in matter, and you're meant to be able to emerge from matter back into light. And I need to talk about Einstein on that level too. But the photon itself has no self-conflict as it makes a very clear choice. And I'd like for you to start to think about that too. Like the photon didn't fall or get stuck or trapped into the leaf. It really chose to become a part of the world of matter by interacting with and collaborating with the plant and the leaf and the photosynthesis structure. So some light comes and chooses to become a part of the world of matter, but some of it does not become a part of the world of matter. You know what it does? It bounces off of objects that are made out of matter. And sometimes it bounces off of those objects, or sometimes it is beamed from or through those objects. And these are two separate things. So when you actually walk underneath like a forest canopy, you're experiencing two things. Sometimes there's the sun dapple, where you have, like light, leaves are going like this, and the light is filtering through the leaves, and you get this beautiful filtered light. But some of it is actually going through the leaf itself. So some of it is like in between the objects of the leaves, like this, patterns. Some of it is through the leaf itself. And some of the leaf is translucent, but not fully translucent, partially translucent. And then some of it is beamed off of the surface of the leaf. Got it? Three things that the light is doing. Between the leaves, through the leaf, it's whatever, it's a small percentage, like let's say 13% of light. Like when you shine a flashlight through your skin, the light is going through your skin. You got it? And then some of it is being reflected off of the surface of the leaf. And in both of those situations, through the leaf and reflected off of the surface of the leaf, these are not haphazard experiences or events. These are very, very intentional. The tree is intentionally beaming light information towards you. When I am standing here in front of this video thing and I'm talking, I'm not just like randomly making mouth parts move and doing stuff and just randomly making noises in any way. I'm very specifically talking to you. I'm talking to you. I'm just not talking near you and you just happen to hear me. No, I know that you're there and I'm talking to you. The tree is doing the same thing. Trees are all doing the same thing. The plants are all doing the same thing. They're very, very intentionally beaming light information to you, not just beaming it out somewhere and hoping that somebody gets it. No, they're talking to you. And same thing with the stars. I mean, they are intentionally talking to you, and the photons are intentionally coming into you as an experience. All right. So of the light that becomes a part of the plant through the process of photosynthesis, some of this light becomes glucose and starches that are stored for the plant's metabolism and also for the animals that eat the plants, right? But then some of it is like stored in a time machine that is known as cellulose. I referenced that last week. If you get the light to transform into glucose, so light transforms into glucose. Here it is light and here it is matter. And if you get enough glucose together, you get chains of glucose that makes cellulose. And those cellulose chains are literally what are the fibers that give structure to trees and flowers and any kind of plant that has a stem. And basically, it's what we would call wood. And it makes it possible for humans to make a campfire and to stay toasty warm. If you did not live in the world you live in right now, if you lived in a very low technology world, you would be like, let's go get some wood for our fire so that we can stay warm tonight and so that we can have optical light even when the sun has gone down, and also add heat light intelligence to our food, make our food more intelligent so that our food can then give us more intelligence. And the very evolutionary biological literalism sense, Humans using fire made it possible for your brains to get bigger. What? Yes. If you just ate nothing but raw food, like raw plants, raw nuts, raw animals, your digestive tract can only absorb a certain amount of those nutrients. There is not enough intelligence natively in your body for you to be able to eat all of that stuff without cooking it and get the maximum amount of intelligence or light nutrients out of it. But when you add fire, when you add light to food, it becomes more bioavailable. The nutrients become more concentrated. It makes it possible for you to get more light out of the matter that you eat. Makes it possible for you to feed your big fat brain. And your big fat brain is a positive fat. We love fats. Fats are good. And your fatty idea catcher needs not only lots of fats, it needs lots of glucose. Oh, I don't know why this thing just needed me to confirm. This is so funny because I said fatty idea catcher. Somehow it didn't know whether I'm speaking English or not, because obviously I am bizarre according to this computer system. But yes, in order to become more intelligent as an evolutionary species in the world, you needed to have more nutrients than you could absorb without applying fire. And this is, of course, very, very different than most other animals and organisms in the world. Like butterflies aren't out there building a campfire so they can cook their flower nectar. No, of course not. Not butterflies, not hummingbirds, not blue whales. They are not building a campfire underneath the ocean so they can cook their plankton. They're all getting their nutrients perfectly fine without having to add fire to them. But human body needs to eat cooked food. Now you guys are all going to be like, that's not true. I saw an Instagram influencer who eats nothing but raw coconuts and bananas, and they're perfectly fine. And I know. There are a lot of people who are embracing the raw food diet, and I actually would not totally embrace that or recommend it. Some people actually have had really nutritional deficits and difficulties by eating only raw foods. It's a bit of an idealistic approach that doesn't always take into account people's real functioning of their body processes. And also, if you to try to do the raw food diet, like you really do have to live someplace where it is very warm, because otherwise your body is trying to use a lot of your natural body heat to cook the food in your tummy so that you can unlock these nutrients and actually feed your body enough. So basically, cooking your food means you can eat concentrated enough nutrients to be able to support your brain function. And this is the myth of Prometheus, that the rest of the gods were like, don't give these humans fire, like keep them small and easily controlled. This is ancient Greece. And Prometheus was like, no, I will give them fire and it will help them to cook their foods and do stuff. And then give humans fire, and then humans used it and became troublesome. And they were like, Prometheus, we don't like you as a result of this. So yes, it's very truthful. Fire is the capacity to make fire and to cook our food means we add intelligence to our food, means we can be smarter because we can get more nutrients, because we can get more glucose and light and calories to go to our brain, because your brain is taking up like 60 to 80% of your metabolic energy. Yes, this is why I always tell you, like, I always eat before I do my classes. It's not just because I'm working on a treadmill. I was like, my brain needs glucose. I need to have, I need light to be able to think about stuff. It's very, very, very connected. Your food and your cognitive abilities are very, very interconnected. So please know that. So what am I saying with all this? Cellulose makes it possible for us to have stored up light. I mean, you can also have beeswax. Beeswax is stored up light. The bees go around combing the flowers to be able to get the energy of the light from the plants that are these flowers. And then, of course, they make their own natural exudations. And then if you know how to make candles, you burn beeswax candles, and you are literally taking the solidified sunlight that these have collected and transforming it again into light that can flow. So you have light that is flowing, light then becomes solid. Then through the process of combustion, you release that light back into a state that is flowing again. And when you combust something, some of that light goes into the area around you. That is known as heat. And we'll get into this. I've already given, I want to say dumped a lot of nutrients on you. I've already given you a lot, and I'll get into the questions and comments, and we'll start to wrap things up for today. But next week in class, we'll talk a lot more about heat and how that relates to the stages of matter and the levels of intelligence that are in this graph. But the more heat that you have in an object, the more intelligent it is. Let's do this now, and then we'll do it again next week. Get to my, wrong one. Okay, now technology is being naughty. Hold on. That made me mad. My mad face. So I pressed the right button, guys, and it faked me out. All right, so over here in this graph, use my pointing color again. Green is my pointing color. Over here, you have a minimal amount of heat. In fact, that's what a Bose-Einstein condensate is. It's essentially no heat. Like, let's just write like big X, no heat over there. And then what you have on this side of the graph here is ultimate heat. Ultimate heat, ultimate fat heat and speed, going fast, are connected together. And then what you have through all of these other stages or phases of matter is increasingly larger levels of heat intelligence, larger levels of speed. So here, in the world of solids, the molecules are not moving very fast. Everybody is stuck in the train car. They can't run around very easily. Or let's use instead horses as an example. In this level of reality, the horses are in the stable, and they're in their little bedrooms where they sleep at night, and they have very little space to move. They're cozy. They're in their space. They can't move around. When they are in a liquid phase, the horses are outside in the paddock. They're still fenced in. They can move around more, but they can't really run that fast. They've just got, whatever, like 10 or 12 feet. They can't really get up to a gallop, but they can certainly, walk around and do a bunch of stuff, right? But then when you start to get to being a gas, this is like when they're in a giant, wide open field of many, many miles. There might still be some fences around their field, but they can start to really gallop. And that means that all of these motions of the molecules bouncing around are super fast and super complex. And then by the time the horses are here in the state that is known as the plasma, they're essentially wild horses with no fences in between them, and they can go wherever they would like to go. They're at the almost the ultimate of levels of freedom, okay? Heat is intelligence. So this is different because in the regular scientific model and comprehension of the phases of matter, you would say that the crystalline nature of, let's say, an ice cube is more organized than the gaseous phase of water, which is steam. Human thought form would say that a crystalline thing, that molecules are super arranged. Everything is in a perfect order, like a snowflake. Snowflake is beautiful and perfectly arranged. And it would say, well, that's more perfect than a gas. Well, if you look at the steam coming off of your kettle in the morning when you're making your coffee, or if you look at a cloud of water vapor in the sky, it's like, look at that. Like that thing is all curly and wild and all over the place. And it doesn't look like very much of anything. It's not like a perfect snowflake, right? But I am here to tell you it's the opposite. That the crystalline or highly organized nature of a solid is actually less intelligent than the very, very fast moving nature of a gas. Because the gas is moving in such complex molecular patterns that humans that are perceiving it can't even tell that it's a language and that there's patterns there. So it would be like anything. If you're listening to people that speak a foreign language, or if you're listening to birds and you don't have the complexities of your own mind to be able to decipher what they're saying, it doesn't mean there's no language there. It means you don't have the levels of intelligence necessary to perceive intelligence. So I will emphasize this. It takes intelligence to perceive intelligence. But the energy that is known as heat, the dance of molecules, bouncing around very, very fast and in levels of less areas of less density is structured dance. And if you can watch that dance over time, you would learn an enormous amount. It is non-random. And then if you can also look at a plasma, where you have not only molecules dancing, but then you actually have these individual electrons starting to become liberated and dancing in new patterns, meaning that they are no longer wedded to their original molecular spouse or partner, then it becomes even more intelligent. So what regular science of your time perceives as random motion is not random. It's highly organized, but it's an organized intelligence that is so complex that it cannot be perceived as intelligence. And when you move through all of these levels of heat, going up to the levels of extreme heat, I already told you. So a plasma is extreme heat. Water can be turned into a plasma. It's something like 100 million degrees Celsius. I don't remember exactly what it is. I would say 10,000. Okay, you got to mute yourself if you come into the meeting. Thank you. It's so incredibly hot. It's almost more than you can imagine it, because we think of water as something that, you know, is the opposite of fire in our five senses reality. But yes, water can be turned into a plasma if you add enough heat to it. What happens is the fabric of reality at a molecular level gets changed and ironed out to liberate those electrons, and means that the hydrogen and oxygen atoms can behave in new ways. You know why they can behave in new ways? Because you added more intelligence to the system. In each of these phases of matter, what is happening is that you have added more intelligence to the system, and you have increased its behavioral freedom of what the matter can do, until you get to the point where you've increased its freedom to the ultimate level, which is when it is a beam of light. So this is the continuum of consciousness. Here you have ultimate freedom, ultimate fastness, ultimate heat, ultimate freedom. And at this other end of the spectrum over here, you have the opposite. You have ultimate, we won't call it stupidity, but we'll say lack of sentience, non-awareness. The Bose-Einstein condensate is a super dense form of matter. And if I were to draw this for you, this is an easy, fast drawing. It's this. Boom. One atom. Because you know what happens? All of these different atoms slow down, and they slow down and they all start to overlap on top of each other as if they are one thing. And when they all overlap on top of each other, kind of like my drawing, what you end up getting is, I guess you'd call it like not a super atom, but an atom that represents the totality of all of these atoms. They act as one. They act as one. Here they are individuated, and as they slow down, it means that they're experiencing less and less time. So movement over here, movement at the level of gas, at the level of plasma, that means they're moving through time. When solids slow down, energy is removed from them. They are no longer moving through time. And all of these atoms overlap upon one another and become something that is no longer moving through time. It is stuck. It is stuck in one moment. And as it is stuck in one moment, it is super dense, no light, no information, no consciousness, no sentience, and no more movement through time. This is the full, I want to say spectrum, full array here from infinity, moving through time, infinity time over here, right? To zero time over here. This is a diagram of time that you're looking at. How much time is experienced. Here, as a beam of light, you experience all time, infinity time, every single thing time. And here, as a Bose-Einstein condensate, zero time. Matter that has zero energy is not moving through time. It is no thing. It is nothing. Remember that bullet train that you're on? On the bullet train, you are infinity, light, moving through time infinitely and surrounded by non-stuff that doesn't move and has zero amount of energy. And what allows this to move eternally at infinite speed is that it keeps all of its energy together. This is not just an object, but it's really a system. So it is, again, a system of bouncing energy from place to place, that there is no loss of signal, and that the stuff or other places that are really non-places are non-movingness. I can't even make this sentence work. And there is no energy in those no places where no thing non-exists. That was really hard. Okay, so now I'm going to the chat. Thank you very much, everyone, for allowing me the focus to be able to get through all of my notes and everything. There's always going to be more, don't worry. But now let's get to questions and comments. Kim Rose, thank you for being here. Says, you said light going on its journey creates. What exactly does it create? Can you explain how our observership is related to creating reality? Beautiful question. Okay, so in my new diagram, here's the sun and the singularity at the center and the photon. And the overlappingness of every photon stays home. It stays home in its comfy pajamas. It doesn't go flinging off and go somewhere else in order to create something, but it creates with its consciousness. It creates with its sentience. It creates this ballooning fabric of space and time as a series of potentials. That is a story that it is exploring. Kind of like, well, I'm staying home in my comfy pajamas, but I'm wondering and thinking, what if I did a thing? I'm a photon. What if I got out of my pajamas and I did a thing and I went somewhere? What if I got out of my pajamas, brushed my teeth, and got over to Earth and became a part of a leaf, and I photosynthesized? What would happen? And then I create that with my mind state. I create that event, and then I experience it. And then when I make that experience, and the leaf and the tree has that experience of self-state, and others also perceive it too, that experience is transmitted back to the sun and back to the photon. And the sun and the photon itself are like, oh, that is what would happen if I made that thing happen. So the active creation is an act of exploring a possibility as a cognitive event, as a form of exploring one's own self-sentience. This is slightly different than the concept of observership, where I am looking at a plant right now, but what I'm really looking at is a bunch of potentials that aren't a plant yet. And they're not a plant until I organize those potentials through my interpretive system into what myself as a biological form perceives as a plant. So the photon is pure abstraction. This light over here is abstract. Does not have one face, two arms, and two legs. It doesn't have the filter of being a person that allows it to take something that is an abstract waveform and turn it into the five senses story of the world around us, right? But we as organisms have that privilege. And this is what, like, why would I even want to be an organism? Why not just be a photon in my comfy pajamas? Because as an organism, you get to be the privilege of observership and making stuff happen through experiencing and interpreting your experience. And I want you to know that you're both of these things at the same time. You are the abstraction of pure light, creating this experience, and you also are the experiencer, observing the experience. And then you also are transmitting that experience back to everyone else who emitted this in the first place. I just had to mute someone, and I just have to emphasize over and over, like when you come into the meeting, it's no problem if you can't be here at the beginning of the meeting, but just mute yourself because it's really hard when I have to kind of do all these things at the same time. So just thank you guys for doing that for me. So yes, you want to be because some people might be like, light schmite, journey schmurney. Shouldn't I just stay home in my pajamas and forget about this whole thing? Because it seems like we're creating a lot of bad stuff and opening ourselves to many negative potentials by doing this. And I want you to know nothing great is ever experienced without some risk. Yes, there is some risk. Like when you're an artist or a musician, you're like, well, I might make this. It might be beautiful or it might be a total disaster. I don't know what it's going to be. Let's make it and find out. Like you have to recognize that is very, very truthful. But you also have to recognize that this process of creating and refining your experience and refining your creation is for positive growth. If the photon never made any potentials and you never explored any of those potentials, you would never grow. And then you would have just the amount of light that is called infinity. You would never have infinity plus one. And that means you'd have like a stasis, not a movingness. And light and consciousness and sentience and intelligence is really defined by its movingness. So light moves. If it stops moving, it coalesces and it becomes matter. But then what do? We take that matter and we get it going on its journey again. And all of this really, really relates to you and your process of ascension, because now I bring it into the esoteric realities of your spiritual attainment. Like a lot of what I do is talking about materialistic science, making a bridge, giving you new cognitive ways of being able to perceive the world. But all of this is to be able to give you allegories for your own journey as a spiritual or ephemeral presence. You're physical right now, but it's not a Gnostic prison. It's a stage on your development, like becoming a candle made of beeswax or a log for a fire. And then at a certain point, you are combusted, or your physical energy of stored light is released and you are light and you flow as light again. And none of this was meant to be an imprisonment. It was meant to be a way of transporting light over time, because light has to be flowing. And otherwise, how do you stop light from flowing? You can't. Like, it's very difficult. Like even light and electricity and time, these things are all related. They all flow. And it's very difficult to store them up so that you have them when you need them and they are not flowing. So like, what did humans invent to store electricity? Batteries. But it's not like you don't have like a cup full of electricity. Like you can have like water flowing, and then water flows into your cup, and then water is in your cup and you've stored it up, or your cistern or your well. And then when you're ready, you pour it out and you have it. Electricity is not like that. You can't just store it up. It would go bye-bye. You would lose your charge. So batteries are a storage solution that involves complex chemistry so that you can store the potential energy as potential and then re-emit it later. But it's not electricity. When it's in a battery, it is not electricity. And you guys know this because, like, look, like there's batteries inside of my little remote control. I can touch them and I'm not going to get electrocuted. You only get electrocuted if the energy is flowing. It's being stored as a potential, not as something that is actually flowing. And then also time. So right now, of course, humans don't have a way to be able to store time. And I shudder to think, because I think that if humans with their not so good value system need to learn a lot before you start doing stuff with time. Like, you know, humans have been able to store up batteries and then use it to be able to create negative impacts on their world and on each other. You're not ready to store up time and then be able to use it and deploy it when you're ready. That would be terrible. People would be like, like, I'm not ready to go to work yet. Like instead of pressing the snooze button and like going back to sleep, you like press the snooze button on time, freeze it, and then press go on time when you're ready for it to go. You're not ready for that yet. I'm getting definitely silly, but I'll talk about an old Twilight Zone episode that was not the one from the 1950s. It was from the 1980s. All right. And it was a magical amulet that a busy mom was given by like a magical amulet fairy. And when she pressed the button, time would stop, time would freeze. All right. So she's like, oh, like, life is driving me crazy. The kids are yelling. I don't have enough time for myself. Press the magical amulet button, and everybody freezes. Okay. And then it shows her, she's like having a cup of tea, doing her nails. She's like, oh, this is so great. I'm getting so much time to myself while the world is frozen around her. And she also uses this to kind of like evade proselytizers that come to the front door. She's like, oh no, these guys are ringing my front doorbell and they want to talk to me. She freezes time and then she kind of like drags them away, puts them out by the trash cans, goes back to the front door, and then clicks go on her necklace again. It gave her freedom to be able to do things. But these are not good ways of manipulating time. It's kind of like Homer Simpson's time toaster. They're not good ways of being able to manipulate time. So yeah, you would not want to bunch up time and be like, well, here I wadded up time into a bundle, and then I stopped time, and then I spread out time, and then I made time go super fast in order to catch up. Like none of that is good. All of that is a super stress to the overall metabolism of the larger alive time animal that is known as time. Time is alive. All these things, the sun and the stars are alive and conscious. Light itself is alive and conscious. Photons or the photon is or are alive and conscious. And time is alive and conscious. And how would you like it if someone was making you like get super constricted in one area, but then super stretched out in another area, and then sometimes frozen, and sometimes moving? Like none of that would be good. None of that would be healthy. Okay, so I hope I answered your question, and thank you for allowing me sometimes my silly journeys into pop culture. Charlie B says, water can be turned into a plasma. He says, there are videos of workers in a power plant sticking a broom into the steam vent, causing the broom to catch fire. I'm not sure if I understand, but I think I'm getting it. So like maybe it was a very, very hot steam vent from the, oh, I think I know what you're talking about, from like a electrical plant or something like that, because some of them run on giant steam turbines. So I don't even know if humans have any machinery that can make water get to the level of superheatedness to become a plasma. I don't know, but it can exist in the universe, in the cosmic infrastructure. So there are giant plasma tubes that actually go between galaxies, superheated gases, superheated. This is on the galactic scale of molecules and atoms that are so hot and fast and intelligent that they are literally creating bridges between galaxies in enormous, vast distances in time and space. I think that these are things that are usually happening on a much, much larger level, but fascinating that steam can be heated to that level in any human infrastructure, because it is literally something like 10,000 degrees Celsius. I don't know, perhaps there are some experiments where they're able to do this. Yes, very, very rarely in our regular day-to-day lives do we ever encounter water at this pressure, because also we'll talk about water in the phases of water in subsequent teachings too. It has to do with your atmospheres or your pressure, and of course everything changes when you are under greater levels of density and levels of less density. All of these things change, and you know that if anybody here is from Denver. Anybody here from Denver? Shout out to Denver, because your city is a mile high, and that means that boiling instructions are different. You make rice differently in Denver than you do if you live on the coast, let's say in San Francisco, you guys have two totally different recipes because one is higher elevation, one is at lower elevation. You have different atmospheres of pressure. You have different boiling points. I know it's kind of amazing. We'll talk about that more later. Mary Ellen, thank you very much for being in class. Says, next week, can you talk about this related to the body's healing? Because then with weather, cold and warm climates, she goes on to say, is illness in body just dense, stuck light? I think so. I suppose the dance creates more plasma. So I'm not sure because it depends on how we are defining illness. Like in my viewpoint, I would define illness as any series of events that has gotten you kind of going towards the non-perfectly aligned timelines. Anything that brings you towards the membrane of death or away from the central core timelines of possibilities where you are in a state of frictionless bliss. So let's see, cold and warm climates, and I would say disease would be caused by lack of information. That would be the most abstract and neutral, truthful statement that I could make. That disease in the body is when you do not have the correct amount of information, and the information that you are embodying, the bad math, brings you towards these inevitable endings of the narrative story of who you are. But when you embody the correct level of information, then you are a frictionless event and you are eternal and your timelines never end. That is what the sun and the stars are all attempting. That's what all light everywhere is attempting. And that is what we are also a part of as our embodiment state here. So instead of looking at the sun and the stars as being like these perfect beings, worthy of worship, and we're like small, lowly, sinful, gross, disgusting, contorted creatures. We're like, no, everybody's here learning. We're all a work in progress, all learning. And Mary Ellen says, okay, so information would be belief systems. Belief systems, yes, on a cognitive level, but also cell-to-cell communication. So some of it is about what you think on a cognitive level. Like, my name is Aurora, and I think this. Like, I want to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But what do my cells think? And how do they express thought? My cells all and your cells all have their own thought structures, volition, motivations, and agendae in their world. And how do they express it? Through cell-to-cell communication. Cell-to-cell communication has to do with the transmitters and receptors that are on the outside of each cell membrane and what is sent between each different cell. So sometimes cells send each other mitochondria or melatonin. They communicate with each other through that. Sometimes they send each other oxygen or glucose or other positive resources for metabolism. Sometimes they send each other hormones. Like one of your cells might send out insulin as a hormone to your other cells, and your other cells receive it and are like, oh, I got to do this. Epinephrine, cortisol. These are other forms of either hormones or neurotransmitters. Dopamine, serotonin. These are chemicals and molecules that your body uses to talk to each other cell to cell. There's also neurological information that happens on a cell-to-cell level, and all of that is on the very five senses reality. Now let's talk light body, because within your body, you have something that is minimally recognized by Earth's surface science right now. It's called biophotons. And your biophotons are actually sent through your collagen structures, which are your microtubuli and your fascia. And these are light transmitters, and you communicate on a cell-to-cell level at a light speed or faster than light communication. And that really means, like, I always use this example. If a bee stings you on your shoulder, it would take a long time in terms of neurological events for the rest of your body to be like, hey, did you hear? Like, this shoulder just got stung by a bee. And then the rest of your body would be like, shoulder got stung by a bee, shoulder got stung by a bee, tell the next guy, tell the next guy, tell the next guy, tell the next guy. And it could take a long time for that cascade to happen. And then for your body to create the inflammatory response and the anti-allergic response and mobilize all of its forces and anything, whatever it is. If it's a bee sting, if it's an injury, whatever happens, the truth is your entire body goes into overdrive instantaneously. If you get something that's like a bee sting, your whole entire body gets the message instantaneously because this is life and death stuff. Everybody gets the message like, bee sting just happened. Get this cortisol happening. Get this epinephrine happening. Get this blood pumping. Do this right now. And then you'll stay alive. So the entire body has to work together at light speed. And again, Earth's regular medical science does not recognize this enough, but there are some doctors, mostly in Germany and some in Russia, who have done good work and good research in recognizing biophotons as a fiber optic cable system through the body that is light speed or faster than light communication. But all of this, it sends the medical industry kind of like tea kettle tumbled over. The medical science kind of doesn't know what to do with that, because then you'd have to reassess all of these things. Like usually you go to the doctor and the doctor like has a little hammer and hits your knee to see if your reflexes are good, right? Like how fast does your toe twitch if I hit your knee? And it has no way of being able to assess like how fast does your body respond if I shine a red light onto your skin over here, or if I shine a blue light onto your skin over here? So medical science is just not calibrated for this post-materialistic sensitivity to light. But some of these doctors, like if you want to look into Dr. Klinghardt, that's Klinghardt, not a total endorsement of the man, but he's done some good work at being able to recognize and heal people's bodies literally by shining different colors of light onto their body. And he found if you shine literally a color of light onto someone's arm over here, it instantaneously goes throughout their whole body. So yeah, if you, and she knows what I'm talking about. So if you know that, then you know what, guess what? What if you're shining a not so good light onto somebody's area of their body? What if you're walking underneath one of these new purple street lamps? Or what if there's blue light shining into your eyes? Or what if there's blue light not shining onto your eyes, but what if it's shining onto your shoulder? What if these artificial fluorescent lights or Bluetooth lights or whatever it is shining onto a body part, and it's getting to every body part and it's diminishing every body part? So you would have a mass class action lawsuit. You'd be like, get your gross unhealthy light out of my eyes, off of my body, off of my skin, because I don't want to be ingesting it. Like humanity is not really ready for that. And Mary Ellen says, I use colored glasses also for each organ. Excellent. I'm really glad that you're accessing that for yourself. And I want to encourage people towards this. You know, you can't see, the lighting is not that great in here right now, but I hope you can see a little bit. I surround myself in my world very intentionally with highly organized color. And it's not just that I'm looking at that through my eyes, I am receiving that through my whole entire light body. So part of my intention in the sharing of this curriculum and in the session work that I do in helping people is awakening or bringing you to a cognitive connection with your light body. And as you either like turn up the brightness of your light body or become more aware of the true innate nature of who you are as light, it is transformative and it is empowering. And also you become much more sensitive to what is in your environment, where you can no longer be around haphazard or ugly light. You only want to be around highly organized information, things that are beautiful. Beauty is often defined as reflective of truth. Truth and beauty come together, and that is also truthful of the music that we make. Things that sound good, they sound good because they contain harmonic truth. So you got to start cultivating light in your whole entire environment in order to really cultivate the health of yourself as a light being. So just as you're moving beyond materialism and you're not interested in 0-point energy, so that way you can like save money on your electricity bill and whatever, build a giant ray gun out of infinite energy. You want to use that light for a different purpose. Same thing with your environment. You want to optimize your environment so that you and the light in your world are absolutely moving in frictionless patterns of eternal continuation, and that's it. That's how you reach eternal life. I didn't finish my sentence because I jumped on to the next thing. People often want to know, how do you become a light eater in this world? Is it just through willpower? Is it just through meditation? Is it just through being like, no, no, no solids for me? I think I'll just like drink a smoothie and then eventually I'll translate completely into eating pure light. Not only That's not the only things you can do. You got to be in a light environment. In order to eat nothing but pure light, you have to be in a calibrated light environment to be able to get enough information to run your information body. And if you're in a non-calibrated environment where it's like maybe some truthful information, but then some lies or stuff that slows you down, then you're not going to get enough light. And also, the stuff that's not truthful slows down the stuff that is truthful. You know what's not a truthful light in your world? I usually hold up a sign in my other class. It's a telecommunications signal that comes from various different towers and satellites in your world. That is not nourishing light. It's anti-life light. It is disarranging light. And it's very, very difficult to cultivate and grow your light body, to be super healthy, to be a light eater with all of that non-nutritive false light in the environment. And Mary Ellen also says, I thought it was the light body that gets distorted first, then the physical body. I would encourage you all to think of your light body and your physical body synonymously. Your physical body has certain anatomical aspects to it that are your light body. For example, your retinas, your pineal gland, your sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are totally part of your light body. Your melanocytes, making melanin for your body to become tan. Your digestive tract, your reproductive system with your hormones, your neurological system, collagen structures. These are all physical five senses aspects of your anatomy body that are part of your light body. Then you also have a light body aspect that is your energy field around you. That, of course, there is not an analog to the five senses, and there are not scientific instruments really that are accredited to be able to perceive it. But you can perceive your light body. You can perceive it with your inner eye, and you can perceive other people's light bodies too. And as you become awakened, or the light is turned up in your light body, and you can perceive your own light body and other people's light bodies, then you become super selective. You become super selective about like who you want to be around and what circumstances you want to be around and how people affect your energy field. So as one example, just and then we'll start to complete our class for today. When you have your energy field that has information about you in this giant bubble, and it's non-local, just like when you get a bee sting, it goes around your whole body at the same time. Your energy field is non-local. It means it's connecting to all light everywhere at the same time. So whatever you put into your energy field precedes your physical body as you're moving through the world. This is the concept of affirmations. Like if you put information into your energy field that says like, I'm a great person. I have a lot to give to the world. I can't wait to have wonderful relationships and adventures. That energy field precedes you before you even walk into a room. And then when you start to like imagine whatever, like it's a mile big, and a mile before you even get to your destination, this beautiful energy field is already connecting with all these other people and organisms. And some of them feel what's in your energy field, and you feel them. And they feel like someone super cool is coming to the party. I can't wait to talk to this person because they've got such great stuff and information in their energy field. But maybe your energy field feels the people at that party. And maybe some of the people feel good, but maybe some of them feel like these are losers. They've got totally erroneous and disarranged energy fields. And you know what? Propaganda is a form of anti-light or disarranged energy field. And you can feel that. When you start to awaken your light body, you can feel like, oh, I am walking into a situation where there's a bunch of people who are super propagandized, and they are running programs and believing in stuff in their mind that is not life-affirming light, but is death-creating error instead of information. And your light body might not want to be with them. And that's very, very fair. And it's painful. really, if you have to be in the presence of people at that point who are containing non-light and because they slow you down. They literally impede the frictionless feeling of your own body. So the distortion can be in the light body first, but then it can be in the physical body. But then let's also talk about different substances or procedures that can disarrange the physical body and that they also translate to a disarrangement of the energy body. This is what drugs are. Drugs are when you take a physical molecule that disarranges your light body, your information body. And some people do that for fun. They're like, I'm going to ingest over the weekend some erroneous information at the discotheque and then have a wild experience of being disarranged. And like, those are people, my shoulders go down. Those are people that your light body doesn't want to be with. If you are becoming more light and more organized, and moving away from self-destruction and towards self-construction. And your energy field from a mile away starts to touch on people who are taking these molecules that disarrange their light body, then they will be disarranging you. And then once you start to recognize that, like we're getting into what it is to be a telepathic community, their minds are disarranged, their energy fields are disarranged, they're sending out things that are not healthful, that touch upon you. And then when you receive them, it slows you down in your life. This no longer is a question of you do you and I do me, which is ordinarily how we would recognize boundaries and interpersonal freedom. When your disarrangement of your light body starts to have an impact on the arrangement and organization of my light body, then I can't let you do that type of bad stuff. So I cannot just let people go around taking any kind of molecule that they want to and disarranging their light body. That doesn't work anymore. If that ever worked, be like, okay, great, like, go be a drug addict somewhere else and take a bunch of powders or whatever you want to do at the discotheque, as because it's your life, right? But then, stay away from me. But if your light bodies are all connected, because you're like your cells of your body are all connected, your human connections in community are all connected, and you're connected to squirrels in the park and dogs and butterflies. It's not okay if anybody takes a bunch of these crappy molecules. It's not okay to have these crappy molecules in existence, to have people take these disarrangement molecules, and then some of them are, these like whatever drugs, wild consciousness distorting drugs. But then there's also stuff like chemical pesticides that disarrange the light body in our world. Glyphosate, disarranging the light body in our world. A lot of these chemicals should not exist. A lot of these molecules should not exist because of the negative information impact they have on information. I didn't say the right thing. A lot of these chemicals should not exist because of the negative impact these molecules have on information. Some of these molecules are anti-information and they should not be in existence. So then you'd be like, well, we got to get rid of these corporations or cartels that are making these molecules. And I'm like, I agree. I completely agree. The corporations and the cartels and the manufacturers and the pharmaceutical industries are anti-information producers. And then you can't have those guys creating anti-information, anti-sentience, anti-orderly data, anti-time. They're destroying time with what they are making. This becomes a worldwide purge that needs to happen on many multiple levels. So before you dive right in to creating this, clearing purge of your world, just get all the information that you need first. Don't jump to conclusions, but I will be a very, very good guide to you about which molecules are inherently anti-light and are inherently non-informative. And you can also, I'm sure, intuit them because you guys are super smart at this point. Definitely anything that's a carcinogen, because carcinogens are anti-light, anti-information, having an impact on the information armature of your body, which is called your DNA. Your DNA is the bridge of light, the molecular bridge of light. I should say, instead of a carcinogen, a mutagen. Anything that causes the mutation of disarrangement of your DNA or fragmentation of your DNA is anti-light. And so that would be things that are mutational, things that are carcinogenic. How about genetically modifying things? How about CRISPR? And to be very distressing, there are now scientific papers that recognize EMF fields being used at the nano and sub-nano level to arrange DNA molecules so that they are, in so that they are nonsense, like taking the light out of DNA and turning it into nonsense, taking the information out of DNA and turning it into nonsense. You don't want any of that. It's like taking the musical score of a beautiful symphony and being like, this sounds too good. Let's make it sound worse. And taking the beauty of the music away from it. So you don't want any of that. And just remember, it's easy to destroy and it's easy to screw things up and it's easy to be anti-intelligent. It is very, very challenging to be perfect. And so I love the Path of Light class because I get to just teach you about perfect patterns and what you need to do in order to be perfect. And really everything that I'm giving you is a course of study, weightlifting exercise regimen to bring you to the end result, which is where you comprehend how to transform matter through information, through manipulation of light, and you comprehend what is your journey, I want to say back home, but restoration of yourself to being a being of pure light in a world of pure light, which is the bullet train on the world of pure light. And it's also the most merciful and direct resolution for all things in your world that are non-light. So it's not the duality of light versus dark. And it's definitely not the duality as it's been presented of like yin versus yang. And you must have contrast in order to be able to perceive light. No, actually, you can have a world that is a continuum of pure light with no darkness or with no ignorance or with no error. You don't really need to have stuff that is wrong or stuff that is ignorant in order to be able to highlight through contrast the stuff that is correct and intelligent. You can actually have just a 100% field of pure intelligence. And that is what the world of pure light is. And when you're in that world of pure intelligence, and there's nothing around you that is non-intelligent, there's nothing around you that is non-intelligent. There are no things that are around you. Anything that is not intelligent literally cannot exist in that world. And I always get to this point where it's like I say these things and you're like, these words don't make any sense. It sounds like you're talking nonsense. And I'm like, I'm not talking nonsense, but it's very, very hard to put these things into words. Okay, so I will say on that note, oh, there's one more comment, but then I know I've liquefied your brains enough and you guys have done enough reps. And now you need to have electrolytes and eat protein. But let's get one more comment here. Pedro, thank you for being here. Long-term student says, lately I have seen videos in my feed of some breath works. Supposedly you can manifest, heal, and improve your life. Haven't seen the videos, just browse the videos title. Do you know about this? Well, I haven't seen those particular videos, but I am a little bit familiar with what people call holotropic breath work. And I have to tell you, I am very skeptical about it and not promoting it at all, because mostly I think what is happening is people are experimenting with hypoxia, which is basically starving the brain of oxygen. When you hyperventilate and you breathe in and out far too quickly, your body cannot effectively absorb enough oxygen. There's not enough oxygen leading to the brain. And this can bring people to a mildly hallucinatory state that is not good. This is not good. This is not good, guys. I want you to have plenty of oxygen in your brain, because if you don't give your brain enough oxygen, your brain will die. And so I feel sad that the community of spiritual seekers is so desperate to try to get into a higher dimensional viewpoint that people are willing to starve their brain of oxygen temporarily to have a mildly hallucinatory state and then think that that is what spiritual attainment is. So please protect your brain. I do not advocate for any of these extreme behaviors that can actually be harmful. Like when people take too much nitrous oxide is what they give you as a painkiller during some medical and dental procedures. Nitrous oxide is also what's in the whipped cream canisters that young ruffians take, and it's called whippets. Don't do that to your brain. It hurts your brain. It really is not good. And Pedro's responding to me. Let me see what he says. He says, yes, it mentions about the lack of oxygen sounded too good. I really, really agree. Yes. So please protect your brain and have enough oxygen in your brain. And I will tell you that there are very many roads to spiritual attainment. And I encourage each one of you to do what is sustainable, meaning it keeps your car on the road. So that way you get to your destination. I don't want you to arrive at your destination, but with a car that is all like been through the demolition derby and then looks and feels terrible. So please do not starve your brain of oxygen in order to try to have transcendent experiences. So thank you for your question. I'm always happy to give you good guidance there. And so let me think about like, because I want to kind of see if I can give you any other examples of that. Because there are other things too that people do in order to bring themselves to higher states, that some of them are like, deprivations and extreme things that people do that I don't really advocate for. That can be anything from like not sleeping enough. People can get into hallucinatory states through not having enough actual sleep, or of course from fasting, not having enough glucose in your body. You can definitely have hallucinatory states from that. These are troubling to me that people are doing that because it's not sustainable. And if you do that, then there's always a price to be paid, and then you must heal and regenerate your body afterwards. So please get enough oxygen to your brain. Please drink enough water. Please get proper nutrients. Please get proper rest. This is the foundation for real spiritual attainment. And to accelerate to light speed, you really do that from a body that is like super healthy, not from a body that is starved or deprived in any way. So focus on keeping your car in really, really good top condition, and even tuning the engine and changing the oil and even putting the Armor All on the tires and polishing the outside of it. Do everything perfect. Yeah, I didn't mention enough how like your sebaceous glands that people often look at as like, like your skin oil is like dirty and greasy, or I'm making this face like, you're not good for having oily skin. And I'm like, no, cultivate your skin oils. That's like, polishing the outside of your car. You want to cultivate your skin oils. How is that part of your light body? Because it allows the light to enter through the outer levels of your epidermis. I'm sure you guys have at times looked at the difference between if you pick up like a stone, like a river rock outside, and it just is dry and it looks dusty. It's like the colors don't look that amazing, but you can either put water on it, or, you can put a small amount of skin oil on it and you polish the outside. And then all of a sudden you see all these beautiful colors. It changes the surface texture to put oils on something. When you have the oils on the outside of your skin and your beautiful spacious glands and the tiny hairs that are connecting to the sun and the stars, light flows into you more through your skin. So cultivate your skin oils, use gentle cleansers on your skin, and also place healthy oils on the outside of your skin. And so those are all like natural moisturizer type of oils, like coconut oil or jojoba oil or whatever, beef tallow or something like that. But avoid the petroleum and the mineral oils and anything that is unnatural to go on the outside of the skin. And then, and avoiding molecular chemicals and other things like that that go in your skin. Is your light body, and you want light to come in through the outside of your skin as a part of your journey of remembering that you're made out of pure light. Okay, so all of that, good. You did enough reps. Everybody needs now. Totally, you got to take care of your brain. Please go have some glucose. Please go hydrate yourself. Please go take care of your bodies, and also just relax your muscles for a little bit, because you did a lot of heavy lifting. So you will have good stuff to do between today's class and next week's class. do the next several whiteboards, okay? And everybody should be able to access those. And I will send out more notes for you to read. And be prepared for, I think next week's class is all about photosynthesis, and we're going to do molecular chemistry. So what I did in last week and this week was really talk about the macroscopic world of giant stars and how giant stars create these giant transformations of the fabric of space-time. But what we're going to start to do is turn it into comprehending what's happening at the tiniest levels of molecular chemistry, and how molecules bond, how atoms bond, how this creates glucose in the body, how this, it's really down to the minutiae of reality. And all of this is not just a fun traipse through a bunch of weird concepts. Once you start to really embody these concepts, you're going to really relate it to your life and start to see how you can transform matter and even create matter with your mind. Okay? Good. Go do something fun and relax your mind now, everyone. Okay? Hug a dog, hug a cat, watch silly cartoons or whatever you enjoy. Thank you so much. And I love and appreciate each one of you. Thank you for being with me on the path of light. Thank you for being wonderful students, and for being so trying so hard in what we are doing, because I know it takes a lot of effort. Thank you, everyone.